Part 324. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3245. But we need to arrange some masters from the other world for us to familiarize ourselves with their fighting methods so as not to be caught off guard. Good. Black God Jiayan let out a long sigh of relief. He was afraid that these experts would now be reluctant to take action because they were afraid of risks. These few are the lower-level guests of the territory lord who came to the trade area last time. At this time, they entered the other world as they wished, but they did not go out directly. Instead, they digested the information here and used the many benefits shared by Jiayan. It can be said that they tasted a lot of sweetness. Naturally, there won't be much reluctance if you start taking action at this time. Whatever you get, you must give something, not to mention the opportunities in the other world. In their view, there are still many opportunities to be developed. Jiayan ordered the dispatch of these 6 masters, and Jiayan also deliberately pulled away the subspace genius who had fought against his clone. He wanted to see if this powerful man could really have the ability to come and go in subspaces of this level of intensity just like his true form. If anything, it is equivalent to having one more person with the power to protect himself in the hands of a supermaster. This is a huge improvement to some extent. Sorry, I tried the method you mentioned. Without entering, I knew that I couldn't resist the subspace outside, not even in an instant. Seeing the apologetic look in his eyes, Black God Jiayan nodded helplessly to show his understanding. There are many types of masters with subspace talents. The opponent's talent focuses on controlling subspace. On the 5th, 6th, and even 7th or 8th floors of subspace, he can instantly master large areas of subspace distortion and attack any enemy in sight. Unlike Jiayan, a master of subspace talent who focuses on traveling through space, he is much worse at traveling through and withstanding heavy pressure. Moreover, without Jiayan's array defense, let alone entering the outer subspace of the inner world, even if he were to try it for a moment, it would probably be fatal. At the same time, the other party also sighed. He boasts that subspace has reached the pinnacle of the galaxy. He really doesn't think he will lose to anyone in terms of subspace ability, but now he worships Jiayan's subspace ability. At least in terms of travel, he didn't think there was anyone at the same level in the galaxy who was better than Jiayan. However, my subspace ability seems to be able to perform some small tricks. Before the enemy understands the principle, it can be regarded as a trump card. If there are any difficult targets, let me go. Okay, you can go directly to contact the old man, and if there is a chance, help him. I will send someone to lead you there, and I will also help you contact him. Okay, I'm going. 6 masters were arranged, and Black God Jiayan guarded the station by himself. The local area naturally needs experts to be in charge. Moreover, the clone state is not of a type that can go out to fight for a long time. Once the real body's backup is used up, this clone will be equivalent to an ordinary domain lord level at most, and it may also be a weaker one. So it's better to stay on the mainland, and if something unexpected happens, just use the means left behind by the real body to strike with thunder, which can also make people feel a little more at ease. Along with the attack of these 6 masters, the small human race Wuobei, who had been quietly cultivated by the Black God Jiayan for a period of time, was also dispatched by him. This was to test the skills she had learned from Jiayan during this period. Especially for beings in the other world, the improved and mastered formation variant. This is the first time Jiayan has taught others this variant, and it is a variant that contains a lot of Tao power insights. It is extremely suitable for the lives in the other world. It just so happened that Wu Pilei had a basic foundation and learned fairly quickly. Now she has mastered a certain foundation and left with Jiayan's expectations. Those small human races in the other world, it seems now, have quite a potential for development. At least in my hands, the potential is greater than other races. Jia Yan issued another order to contact more small humans, especially those who were loyal to the Yinda Chamber of Commerce. If they were willing, he would organize an army of small humans. After Wu Baila was the touchstone, the little humans were taught several training techniques by Jia Yan, and they were all targeted. It cannot be said that other races cannot achieve the same effect, but who made Jia Yan spend his energy only on Wu Baila? Other races can only let other masters make arrangements, or wait until Jia Yan is free. Moreover, according to Jia Yan's observation, the cultivation method of this small human race is very similar to that of the human race on Earth. The meridians and other things are all common, which makes it easier to get started. Other races may need countless years to find these things, but he does not have the energy. Time to do this. In other words, the little humans, who were almost at the bottom of the world in the past, will soon have the possibility to stand up from Jia Yan. In addition to this, the guarding cities on the Shuanghao side also started large-scale activities, and the deployment of troops was intense and rapid. Economically, a city like Xiancheng is comparable to half of the dynasty. Especially today, a few decades ago, the commodities in circulation in the entire dynasty are more or less related to our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. I want to let the economic collapse of the dynasty is just a problem that we can solve with a small action. Unfortunately, now is not the right time. The financial colonization method has been played countless times in the long history of the civilizations of various forces in the galaxy. Everyone who knows some relevant knowledge can work out several plans. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce chose a more concealed method. By the time the dynasty noticed it a few years ago, it was already too late. Let's do this. Send a few caravans to explore the surrounding islands. We can also establish appropriate branches on those large islands. Of course, we don't need to use the name of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, which can be considered hidden. Black God Jia Yan can be said to be full of brain power these days. One order after another was issued in an orderly manner. But at the forefront of the dynasty, the war was more changeable than the orders he issued, producing countless songs and symphonies of fate. The main reason was that the imperial army was defeated and retreated hundreds of millions of kilometers, which happened more than once. Among all the corrupt fronts of the dynasty, the only outstanding aspect was the new army led by the old prime minister. This is a new force whose overall apparent strength is far inferior to that of the regular army on paper. However, the combat effectiveness of such a force far exceeds that of all imperial armies. They stood unswervingly on the front line facing the Sea Pirates' army, and they were like rocks. No matter how windy or rainy they were, no matter how crazy the pirate coalition's attacks were, they hardly lost a single ounce. Divided land. Kill. This day was another brutal fight. Old Prime Minister, please retreat to the rear camp. I'm afraid the other party will send out strong men to carry out beheading tactics. If I also retreat, this dynasty will be over. The old Prime Minister shook his head and rejected the suggestion of the guard leader who defended him. The guard leader paused, then firmly clasped his fists, said nothing more, and silently guarded the elderly Prime Minister. There are many knowledgeable people in the dynasty, such as the masters beside the old Prime Minister. They all know that this old Prime Minister is the only hope for the dynasty. Maybe Lao Xiang will die on the front line. But his spirit can awaken countless people of the dynasty. If a dynasty with a countless population and many powerful people could really unleash the war potential of the entire dynasty, the incoming forces would be completely out of the question. But things are never that simple. If things like general trends can be achieved just by talking about them, throughout the history of the universe, there will be no such thing as the end of a force that cannot escape being buried in the long river of time no matter how hard it struggles. The dynasty is a country that has reached the end of its rope, and it is also a country that is rotten to the core. It is not easy to bring it back to life with the ability of an old prime minister. Report, old prime minister, there is a small being who claims to be from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce who wants to see you. The leader of the guard looked coldly at the soldiers who came to report, and said indifferently, "No, I don't know who the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is on now." The soldier who reported the news nodded and was about to go back, but heard the old Prime Minister also speak. "There's no need to chase him away. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has been rushing to support my frontline troops recently. It can't be justified without seeing each other. Besides, it's not that simple to assassinate the truth. Just let me see him." This. The guard leader hesitated for a while, but seeing the old Prime Minister's firm expression, he had no choice but to nod and let the soldiers go down and take the people. Not long after, a seemingly extremely small creature entered the camp. It's really small, but its strength. The guard leader's eyes quickly flashed with a look of horror. You know, he has reached a level close to that of a master, and is almost the top expert in this frontline force. But the existence that was approaching more than 60 kilometers in front of him seemed to be only the size of his finger, but it had an astonishing aura. The aura was completely different from their cultivation energy, but it was also filled with endless evil energy, and even he was shocked. If this person wants to take action against Lao Xiang, he must protect Lao Xiang's safety even if he sacrifices his own life. He couldn't help tightening his waist knife. I didn't expect that the famous old Prime Minister of the dynasty would be such a strong person. The master of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce who entered the camp saw the old Prime Minister and others, and simply gave a small salute and talked with them on an equal footing. "How dare you not kneel down in front of the old Prime Minister?" The guard leader's veins were twitching, and he showed signs of charging for a kill. The old Prime Minister stopped him. "It doesn't matter, this strong man is probably at the level of my guru, so he doesn't need to kneel before me." The guard's heart beat violently, and he took a deep look at the tiny creature in front of him. "Sorry, I don't know the senior's strength, how offensive it is." He clasped his fists. The tiny creature on the opposite side said calmly, "Those who don't know are not guilty. Your Excellency also fulfills his duties faithfully. He is completely different from the imperial officers and soldiers I saw along the way. So, warrior, have you seen many troops of our dynasty along the way? Can you tell me what you think?" The old Prime Minister looked at this creature that looked like a shuttle with a smile. They were still a little surprised by the appearance of the cosmic creature. Because in the other world, the environment is different and it is difficult to breed similar looking life forms, so they have almost never seen similar existences. Of course, it can't be said to be rude. After all, there are thousands of types of life in the world. You can see new and novel species every day when you go out. If you are surprised one by one, you don't have to do anything. The small and powerful creature was actually a little surprised. Then he smiled slightly, as expected. "You are indeed the old Prime Minister that everyone praises. I have heard a lot of rumors about you all the way here. Now, it is better to see once than to hear 100 times. You are indeed very different from others. You are a person who can do things, and the other soldiers and civilians of your country I saw along the way, to be honest, I don't see the possibility that they can do anything." The old Prime Minister laughed, waved his hand, and a wave of energy wrapped around the teacup and flew in front of him and the incoming little creature. "Please have tea, sir. So after seeing these officials and people, you chose to work with me, right?" The shuttle-shaped creature opposite also chuckled and nodded. "Yes, but I didn't decide to choose you after seeing them. It was our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce who chose you." The old Prime Minister shook his head and sighed. "Your Chamber of Commerce is really a crouching tiger, hidden dragon. You are still hidden inside. We didn't have any news beforehand. No wonder the dynasty has been unable to take advantage of your Chamber of Commerce for decades. But I want to know one point, why does your Chamber of Commerce want to help the dynasty? To you, our dynasty is a shackle. If we fall, isn't it great news for you? The tiny creature shook his head helplessly and said, "You are wrong. In fact, our Chamber of Commerce also has some disputes with those overseas forces. If they overthrow the dynasty, it will be a big problem for us. So the president specially arranged for me to come over and assist you. How many more experts like you will be sent?" "Not many, 6. Hiss. The eyes of the old prime minister suddenly became sharp. The guard leader also squeezed his waist knife slightly, his eyes filled with disbelief. So, when the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce sent out strong men, did they send out 6 masters? Although it is impossible for the dynasty to be unable to gather such a number of guru-level masters, you must know that behind each guru-level master in the dynasty is destined to have a huge force, and the relationship is intricate, so even if the dynasty as a whole there are probably more than 10 masters at the master level, and there may even be dozens of them, but their hearts are not united. Some of them have already announced their retreat. Now they don't know whether they will live or die. If they really want to get together, the dynasty will use all their strength. In this way, we can produce more than 10 top masters. The last round of siege against Jia Yan had already killed several people. Now I am afraid that there are not many more than the 6 master-level masters. In other words, apart from making money, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, which usually remains silent, now possesses the equivalent of most of the dynasty's top combat forces. Very good, very good. You must be the top among the 6 masters when you come to this place, right? Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3246. The insignificant master chuckled and shook his head, and said bluntly, "In terms of combat power, I'm afraid I can't be said to be strong among several people at the same level, maybe even average, and I won't have the most methods. So when it comes to overall strength, I was probably in the middle of the 6, at best." "Oh, that's not bad." The old prime minister was a little disappointed. He also believed that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce was fully aware of the current situation in the dynasty, and the person sent to him must be the most elite being. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that. But just when he was disappointed, the other party spoke again. "However, in this unique closed area of subspace in the other world, my unique talent method is enough to make my actual combat power jump straight up, especially for those of you who are not familiar with subspace at the same level. My combat power may be doubled or even tripled than usual, so to you, I should be the strongest among the 6. Ah, this." The old prime minister and the guard first looked at each other, and then a look of ecstasy appeared on their faces. They don't know what level the 6 guru-level experts in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce have reached. But they knew very well that back then, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce was feared by the imperial court. Jia Yan single-handedly fought nearly half of the capital's top combat forces. In the end, even the founder was brought out, and he could still survive with his whole body. Retreat. This shows that the actual combat effectiveness of the so-called outsiders is definitely no worse than the masters of the dynasty, and may even be stronger. These 6 are the subordinates of Jia Yan. Even if there is a gap, it can't be too much. They did not ask whether the other party could be compared with the president. This was not giving the other party face. After all, that level of strength is definitely rare even at the master level. If you ask, you will make the other party look bad and ask them to answer. However, in fact, this master of subspace talent would hesitate for a moment when asked this question. Although he was defeated by Jia Yan's clone, deep down he still didn't think he was much weaker than Jia Yan. But the facts are the facts. If you force him to answer, he will admit that he was defeated by Jia Yan, but next time, he will win back. This is the current situation of the strong men in the galaxy. As long as the level is not overwhelming, they will unswervingly defeat the once invincible enemies. Boom. Oh no. The enemy has a team of masters charging over. Just as he was introducing himself, a group of personal guards arrived panting. What? What kind of masters are there? Can the troops in front be able to withstand it? The old Prime Minister didn't bother to talk to the unknown expert sent by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and instead went to deal with military affairs. The other side has 2 master-level masters, and several other masters. They come with the purpose of killing you, old minister, to defeat our army. Old minister, why don't you withdraw first? The new army I cannot do without your command. The guard leader stepped forward anxiously, almost wanting to take the old prime minister away by force. Everyone knows that although the old prime minister is also a guru, he is already old and his body has already gone downhill. He may not be able to compete with a normal guru, let alone 2. And in this new army, except for the master level Lao Xiang, there really is no one at the guru level, so if the opponent's beheading team rushes in front of them, it is really possible that the old prime minister will be killed. He died by direct assassination. In this way, the new army will be leaderless, and no one will have the reputation of the old prime minister to lead this army. This new army, which has just been built, will fail to recover, its combat power will be reduced, and it will become useless at all. Haha, old prime minister, there is no need to panic. I have just happened to meet you. I really came at the right time. Please sit down for a moment and let me go and eradicate these arrogant people. I saw the tiny visitor from outside the world taking a bold step forward and disappearing into the tent in the blink of an eye. Old Prime Minister, look at this, why don't we retreat to the rear first? Even if these people from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce are powerful, they cannot be trusted. The guard leader continued to advise. However, the old Prime Minister waved his hands with bright eyes and looked in a certain direction outside the camp. I am willing to believe this friend of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. The guard hesitated to speak, and finally shut up. At this moment, the entire camp, inside and outside, was paying attention to the direction of the loud shouts of killing. There, a group of masters from the outer sea were charging and fighting. There is no single enemy at all. They formed a powerful vanguard squad and plunged into the camp of the new Imperial Army. Under the crushing force of the strong, this new army exposed their biggest shortcoming, that is, they did not have enough strong people, and they did not have enough training to deal with the strong ones, nor did they have that kind of experience. With beings of similar strength, they can rely on their momentum to fight 1 against 2, or even 1 against 3. But in the face of masters who far exceeded their strength, the shortcomings of lack of sufficient targeted training were exposed. There were a lot of dead people, but no one could seriously injure any of the masters of the surprise attack team. Ha ha ha, this so-called Imperial Army is totally vulnerable. Hee, the momentum is enough. It seems that the reputation of the old Prime Minister has indeed improved in their minds. As long as we kill him, this seemingly powerful force will collapse in an instant. After that, the entire dynasty will there is no army strong enough to fight us. Then what are you waiting for? Rush into the command camp quickly, lest the old guy escapes and we can't catch him later. Just as this group of masters were wreaking havoc, an extremely small shadow approached from the distant command camp with lightning flashes. Who? A master-level master of the beheading team suddenly changed his expression. He discovered the electric figure, raised his knife-like weapon, and slashed at the opponent fiercely. Puff. Just when the blade was close to hitting the opponent's figure, he saw that figure suddenly disappeared. This disappearing figure only lasted for less than a moment. Even the time was indescribable, but it was enough to make him deviate from the direction of the blade. There was no hindrance in his figure, and he stabbed the guru-level expert in the cheek without any hesitation. A sharp piece of metal pierced the guru-level expert's cheek, and blood spurted out. Go to hell. The master on the other side reacted quickly, and before he could receive any more shock, the guru-level being next to him was brutally killed with 1 blow, having already counterattacked. Witherworm tricks. The flying figure sneered and dodged again. When it appeared, it had moved about 10 kilometers, which seemed to be only a tiny amount. Especially in the unique environment of the other world, the distance of 10 kilometers was no different from the 1 millimeter seen by people on Earth. But just these 10 kilometers are the difference between life and death, victory and defeat. This submaster level being only felt that there was no touch of the hit object on his arm, and his heart skipped a beat. It was too late to make any other moves. No matter how much he wanted to do something, it was already too late. The figure was already faster than him. In a flash, he dodged the angle of his attack, then ran past his body along his arms to his heart, and pierced his feet into the vitals of the strong man in the second division. Several other masters wanted to double team, but this being had already retreated quickly and left the encirclement of this powerful sharp knife team. What a strange way to move. It is rumored that on this Dynasty Island, there is a top master from outside the world who is good at transfer. Even the founder of the dynasty is helpless against him. Could it be that he is the one in front of him? No, although the body shape is similar, the appearance is very different. This is someone else. Several experts snatched away the two colleagues who had been seriously injured. When they looked down, they saw that the guru-level existence was not bad. They instinctively deflected the vital points and saved their lives. But the master of the secondary division at the back was not so lucky. His entire popularity was like a gossamer, his heart was shot through, and even the gods could not save him. Their huge body size means that once their vital points are severely damaged, they are far inferior to the masters of the galaxy and have the tenacious vitality of Xiaoqiang. This is the essential difference caused by two different forms of cultivation systems. Of course, at the same time, the unique methods of many worlds are also extremely harmful to the masters of the galaxy. It's just that so far, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has been hiding these facts, and many techniques against them have not been developed. The result is that in the initial collision situation, the galaxy's strongest player is in a dominant position. Withdraw. The dead don't want it anymore. Another master-level expert stared at the tiny creature with fearful eyes and shouted with the determination of a strong man cutting off his wrists. Without saying a word, the masters retreated toward the rear. At this point, their beheading operation could be described as a complete failure. Sir, can you tell me your origin? Galactic Chamber of Commerce. The leader of the master-level team showed an expression that was indeed the case, looked at the subspace master with hatred, and flew into the sky before the new army surrounded him. Although there are many methods for fighting aerial masters that work in the same way, it is a pity that these methods cannot deal with master-level masters. Everyone below could only watch helplessly as this guru-level being took action in person and protected all the members of the assassination team from leaving. Only the body of the master of the secondary division who gradually lost his breath was left on the ground. The master of subspace looked at the corpse of this master indifferently, and shook his head. Sure enough, as in the previous research, the strong men here are a bit weak in physical body, and their vitality can easily be lost after losing the so-called protection of Tau power. Die. If you were a master in the galaxy, let alone being stabbed in the heart like this, even if your heart is completely blown away, you can live for a long time, and you can even fight until you find a new replacement heart. At least you can survive for a few days. Month time. But here, if the heart is gone, it is really gone. You, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, will definitely be crushed by our army's cavalry. Poof. Before the dying man could finish his words, the subspace master chopped off his head with one blow. A creature that seemed to be the size of someone's finger actually drove away a large number of strong squads and killed one of them. The surrounding new troops were stunned. Until the master looked at the soldiers around him and said calmly, "This beast's corpse is my trophy. Some people can help me collect it?" Yes. Among those soldiers, some of them gulped in response as if they were just waking up from a dream. Ha! He is indeed a top expert. At this moment, in the old Prime Minister's camp tens of thousands of kilometers away, 4 masters like them, the battle was almost too close, and they had a panoramic view. The old Prime Minister couldn't help but look happy. The guard leader was also a little surprised. I thought that the masters sent by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce would definitely not be simple, but I didn't expect that it would be so simple. This is simply a slap in the face to these masters in this world. What level of strength are the strong men of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce at? If all of them have this kind of strength, doesn't it mean that relying on the 6 of them is enough to sweep away most of the forces in the dynasty? Old Prime Minister, we have a chance. After the guard leader reacted, he finally became excited. Although I don't know what the motives of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce are, since they even killed the opponent's secondary division and injured their master, it shows that they are sincerely willing to join forces with them. With such help, doesn't it mean that this new army there are more operating possibilities? The lack of top combat power has been greatly alleviated by having a strong general. Yes, with such a strong man, our army no longer has to sit in Sleepy City. If the other party is willing, it can even lead a counterattack. The old Prime Minister was full of loyalty and felt that the war was no longer passive. Also, we are waiting for the help of this strong man here. Even if the other 5 masters he mentioned are slightly different, they are definitely people who cannot be underestimated. I am afraid that the battlefields in other places will also be greatly improved. This is a great thing. God will not destroy our dynasty. When the old Prime Minister said this, he even burst into tears. He was afraid that a single tree would not be able to support the end of the crumbling dynasty. Nowadays, a new pillar of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has been erected. Although the purpose is unknown, it is solid and powerful and has really helped ease the process of the dynasty's destruction. Indeed, it was just as the old Prime Minister was pleased to see. After the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce unexpectedly dispatched 6 masters, these 6 people were assigned to 6 directions, and the process of their participation in the war was similar. Some received preferential treatment, some received cold looks, and some even wanted to persecute. But in the end, no matter what the process was, they all faithfully completed the rescue mission assigned by the Black God Jia Yan. A double score shocked the whole audience. Poof! A figure was killed on the spot. One of the top masters in the galaxy, who was enveloped in the aura of hallucinations, looked at the guru-level master who was killed by him with a cold expression, and let out a sigh. They really don't understand our galaxy's methods, and they don't even have the means to resist our hallucinogenic system. This is a good thing. I can kill more enemies before they find a way. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3247. This master is the only one who has killed the guru-level master among the 6 masters today. This was something beyond Black God Jia Yan's expectation. Because strong practitioners have excellent mental resistance. As someone who has embarked on the path of spiritual practice, Jia Yan is convinced of this. But he forgot that the cultivation system of the cosmic powerhouses in the Milky Way, especially among masters of hallucinogenic spiritual power, also has different categories. Generally speaking, masters of hallucinogenic abilities are greatly less lethal to masters of monasticism, but there are exceptions to this. For example, the person in front of me is a person who uses truth and falsehood as his trump card. At first glance, it looks somewhat similar to the illusion Taoist world of masters in the other world. Most masters will definitely prepare for Taoist attacks as soon as possible. But he was not attacking with Dao power. After this moment of misjudgment, it would be fatal. Who could have predicted that there would be attacks by several real swords that were like magical weapons hidden in the illusionary space of spiritual power? A sword stabbed through, and it was clean and neat. The master-level master also entered with a white sword and came out with a red sword, and died without mercy. On this day, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce once again shocked the entire Imperial Island. The large Chamber of Commerce, which had been silent for decades and had long been regarded as a part of daily life by the people of the dynasty, was misunderstood by people as liking peace and disliking kindness. Young people even believed that this force had never counterattacked the dynasty's behavior. Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. After this battle, his fangs were revealed. The 6 masters came together to fight. In the first battle, 1 master and 3 subdivisions were killed, and the rest were unknown, which indirectly helped several armies achieve staged victories. This was tantamount to reversing the decline of the dynasty in the face of foreign enemies. 2 of the battlefields faced civil wars between the underground tribes and the far north. The master of the underground world was seriously injured and a top clan leader was severely injured. When the clan leader was severely injured, the master showed mercy and said something unknown. The underground clan coalition forces all chose to retreat silently after that, and even vomited out the absolute treasure they had devoured over the years. Most of the land retreated all the way to the main entrance to the underground. The battle in the far north was a bit more intense. Even if the opponent already knew that the person coming was a master of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce who had helped them for many years, they did not have any intention of giving face and directly sent the masters to fight in battle. The mysterious master from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce directly killed 2 subdivisions and seriously injured 1 master after the battle, causing an uproar among the far north thieves. Then the army immediately retreated 5 billion miles, completely stabilizing the Northland. Emergency situation. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce once again became the headlines on the Imperial Island. Things like newspapers were pioneered as early as the 3rd year after the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce settled in the local area, and no one knew that behind the power of these newspapers and media, every one of them had the shadow of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. The media, which seemed to have sprung up after a rain, actually reported the incident in unison and in different tones. And the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has unknowingly become the savior in the media's mouth. Several imperial armies that were about to be destroyed were brought back to life because of the support of the mysterious masters of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. What is this if not a savior? The government was vaguely aware of the media people's problems, but by the time they reacted, it was already too late. If they used strong methods to deal with these media or recycle the media, it would be a disaster for the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, which had just helped the dynasty. It was a bit too heartless, so I could only turn a blind eye. Under the general trend, before the enemy troops entered the core area of the dynasty, the overall image of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce had already been transformed by the attacks of these masters, becoming a patriotic force known to everyone in the dynasty. Although none of the founders were regular members of the dynasty, the media was vague about it, so who dared to say otherwise? Some people even started the suggestion of if you love my dynasty, buy the products of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and it evolved extremely violently. Before the officials were aware of it, it had swept through most of the dynasty area, and countless people wanted to buy the products of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Which also allowed the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's business, which was already approaching steady growth, to grow 10-fold, 100-fold, or even more. Count money and resources until your fingers become weak. This is the current situation of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce today. As long as someone goes out and announces that he is a member of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, passers-by will immediately look at him with admiration and love. It can be said that compared to the government, many people love this power that is just a chamber of commerce. As for whether there is anyone behind it who is adding fuel to the flames, what role do those media play? Shhh. Buddha said, it cannot be said. 10 days. It only took 10 days for most of the situation in the dynasty to be controlled by our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. The president is really a mastermind. The enchanting Hua Xiang looked at the small black-haired man in front of her with great admiration. Although she had known for a long time that the person in front of her was the avatar of the powerful Jia Yan, she was often used to communicating with Jia Yan himself when dealing with affairs in the past. When communicating with this avatar, it was difficult for her to show off anything. The face of subordinates. It is still the pride and habits of the strong that are at work. This time it was different. Not only have I heard that this clone faced a real master of the late domain master in the Milky Way, and the final result was evenly matched. What's more, based on this incident, she felt that the other party's ability to handle the incident was probably not in his true form, which was something she truly agreed with. A book chasing app recommended to me by an old book friend I have known for 10 years, Yaguo Reading. It's really easy to use. I rely on this to read and listen to books while driving or before going to bed. You can download it here. Haha, please don't ridicule me. You may be better than me in dealing with places with similar aboriginal forces. It's nothing more than primitive methods. Black God Jia Yan was not complacent, but shook his head with a wry smile. Hua Xiang also smiled slightly and said nothing to refute. In fact, this is exactly the case. If Hua Xiang and other powerful beings are allowed to deal with this kind of invasion, they can do a better job and be more professional, and even the beginning and end of the work can be handled in an orderly manner. At least he can do better than the current Black God Jia Yan, because that's what he does professionally. But Jia Yan can't be said to be bad. It's just average, so it's fine to praise him, but it's hard to say how outstanding she thinks Jia Yan is. The only thing is to get her approval. How could the Black God Jia Yan not know her psychology? This is not a matter of looking down on, but a normal phenomenon for many ordinary employees. You are indeed a clone, and you are indeed much weaker than your real body, so no wonder they put you in a position that is weaker than your real body. It's nothing more than human nature. Jia Yan has handled things in an orderly manner these days, which has made many people look at him in a new light. In particular, he led the 6 masters of the lower-level domain lords to appear in the other world, and it was said that he personally defeated a lower-level domain lord. When this information came out, the entire Galaxy Chamber of Commerce members became a sensation, and many people were very angry with him. Change. I don't know when my real body will be able to return. I have to support the situation here alone for a while. Although the temporary situation is in the hands of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, Black God Jia Yan doesn't think so. A sense of urgency is a must. The current actual situation is at least 10 times more dangerous than before they were involved in external wars. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce officially stood on the stage, seemingly gaining prestige in one fell swoop, but it also faced threats from several major forces around it. Moreover, the use of the 6 top Galaxy Masters was also full of uncertainties. These Masters he is not a character who can be manipulated by just one of his clones. If they find even a trace of reason worth betraying, they will definitely throw themselves into the arms of the enemy without looking back. Dad, I'm back. Just as Jia Yan was thinking deeply, a female figure similar to him entered the office. Black God Jia Yan's tangled brows couldn't help but relax slightly. Jia Makiao went to the outside world to work, and Yin and Yang had already occupied the city there, and he did a pretty good job in ruling the city underground, and he received great training in both military and political aspects. Due to the recent escalation of the war, when Jia Yan sent out 6 masters, he summoned his daughter back to Xiancheng. Otherwise, if the enemy masters the intelligence and sends a team of top experts to arrest Jia Makiao, there will really be no way to fight against him. You've experienced a lot outside these days, right? Your energy and spirit are different. Jia Yan smiled and asked his daughter to come forward and personally presented the top-notch Rishi tea to her to taste. Well, this time I learned a lot about things, and I also understood that you can't just read dead books. The real world is far more exciting than what's in the books. Jia Makiao sat down obediently, took a sip of tea, and narrowed his eyes in enjoyment. Then I'm sorry. The enemy is now and can only interrupt your experience. No need to apologize. I feel like it's boring to be there. It's just a good time to come back now. I also want to solve some government affairs problems for you, Dad. Jia Yan asked with some funny questions. Oh? You want to solve the government problems for me? It's a good idea, but Dad, I can tell you, this is nothing compared to a small city. When the two armies are confronting each other, the government problems are the most terrible thing is that if you really want to help, I will hold you accountable if something goes wrong. Jia Makiao nodded solemnly, I'm serious, Dad, or I can stay in your office to help from now on. Okay. Black God Jia Yan finally saw that this talented daughter did not like the path of a pure practitioner. Compared with that, she preferred internal affairs work. He would not say anything, let alone force his daughter to follow the path of cultivation. Just like most fathers, in essence, Jia Yan did not want his children to grow up completely in his own footsteps. He felt a little distressed if his daughter could experience many things. It would be better to start with internal affairs. It's not like there aren't top experts who hold internal affairs positions. On the contrary, the pure top masters are the least. Most masters have other hobbies and professions. For example, some are part-time emperors, some are part-time blacksmiths, some are commanders, and some are army bureaucrats. These masters have various positions, and they do not let their positions assist their cultivation, but on the contrary, because cultivation is beneficial to their positions, they embark on the path of cultivation. Few people have embarked on the path of becoming the most powerful master. In Jia Yan's view, Jia Makiao can also develop in this way. Don't you want to play domestic politics? One day you will find that your cultivation is not enough to be a good internal affairs official, so you will work hard to cultivate, and you will also have a lot of knowledge when dealing with government affairs. This will increase your cultivation experience, which is different. Is it an extremely fast way to improve? Great. Jia Makiao still didn't know what his father was thinking. He only knew that he could get what he wanted, and he finally felt relieved from his uneasiness. From that day on, Jia Makiao, a young girl, joined her father's government affairs team. Because of her youth and beauty, coupled with her increasingly semi-public identity, the entire government affairs team had a considerable impact, and it also increased everyone's work efficiency to a certain extent, which really played a big role. In terms of the ability to handle affairs, there is no need to expect much from this. For a newcomer, it still requires a lot of thinking. Moreover, Jia Yan was also keenly aware that he didn't know if his daughter was too smart or if she did it unintentionally. The small human women she led out to practice this time actually received Jia Makiao's guidance and embarked on a crucial path in the cultivation of yin and yang dao. You guys are not bad. So Jia Yan summoned these women. Many, thank you for your compliments, sir. We are still far behind. A little human woman bowed her head submissively. Although she was much taller than Jia Yan, she was still trembling with fear when facing this legendary existence. Haha, in fact, your sisters have also done a good job. It was Wu Pila who pointed out your yin and yang in the first place, right? I have heard about this a long time ago, but I didn't expect that your yin and yang would reach this point. When you come down, you can join Wu Pila's small human army and serve our Chamber of Commerce. Ah. Yes. All little human women, please. I thought that I would stay with Miss Geo family in the future, but I didn't expect that they would have to be sent to the army outside. I hope I'm not being used as cannon fodder. Each of them was heartbroken. But they never expected that when they went to the barracks and saw the little human sister who greeted them, they were a little surprised. They were organized into the Joint Battle Formation Force of the Small Humans. Wu Pilei has already received a secret order from Jia Yan to join this army and serve as the highest commander. She will be officially appointed as a general of the First Army as soon as the number of the army is determined. This is truly a meteoric rise. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3248. And there are several sisters following her. Apart from other things, it is absolutely impossible for them to go to the battlefield on dangerous missions. This is the benefit Jia Yan gave to these former old friends of the small human race. As for if they are still unlucky and die on a certain battlefield in the future, it can only be said that they are unlucky. Jia Yan was helpless. In a battle of this level, even he himself had a slight possibility of death. How could he care about such trivial matters? It is not easy to remember the kindness of the past. In this way, the unique yin and yang dao advantages of the small human race will also be used by me. Moreover, this is purely local combat power, or it has been optimized by me. I am really looking forward to this unit being officially trained. After success, what a glorious day there will be when entering the battlefield. Black God Jia Yan is very much looking forward to the success of this unique unit of the small human race. Because unlike other matters that are arranged by the real body, this is his own action. If it gets results, even if others don't know the inside story, for him, it will be a kind of self-identity deep in his heart. With the intervention of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, the war unexpectedly led to a certain degree of balance. Even with the support of the Six Masters, as well as a steady stream of masters, soldiers, and even supplies from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, the end of the dynasty was not just a matter of fun. The addition of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce only allowed them to foresee a dangerous situation. Just got a slight delay. At the level of experts, the addition of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has brought the dynasty to a level with the opponent. However, the enemy's experts are emerging in endlessly, and there are many rumors along the coast that the enemy has arrived with many more troop transport ships. Among them there are some mysterious top masters and so on. These are all issues that will change the situation in a short time. The dynasty, which was singing and dancing, was in peace. On the day when the Southwest Army was defeated again and was completely defeated, the entire capital city was in turmoil. The reason for the turmoil is simple. It's not that the ruling and opposition parties have woken up. But a certain minister realized that the prosperity of the dynasty was at the end, so one day, in front of countless ministers in the court, he pointed at the Queen Mother's nose and cursed, and even told the story of the Queen Mother's affair with some ministers. As a result, the government and the public were greatly shocked. Even ordinary people are talking about this every day. After all, although there have been rumors circulating among the people for a long time, everyone feels that the Queen Mother is not that self-loving, but you can't say it in front of others. Where can you save their face? What's even more exaggerated is that the minister felt really good after scolding him. When he got home, he felt uncomfortable all over and a little scared. He didn't know where his muscles were cramped. He wanted to strike first, so he gathered tens of thousands of troops from his own forces and stormed into the palace in the dead of night. If Kaizu hadn't been there, this man would have destroyed the entire palace of Nyoda in this battle. It's better now. Both the government and the public finally saw countless royal relatives killed and injured in the war, and a young prince was frightened to death in his own palace, which revealed the true decadence and decline of the royal family. If the previous dynasty only revealed the atmosphere of decline, the dignity and momentum of the royal family for tens of thousands of years can intimidate countless Yao Xiao. So now, the only fig leaf of the royal family has been lifted. Many ministers suddenly realized that the royal family is weak. The entire foundation has been exhausted and only the founder is left. Moreover, the strength is probably not as good as before. Founder. At least in that attack decades ago, even Kaizu was helpless against the president of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. The intimidating power of the founder has already fallen from the altar. In addition to this battle, although Kaizu was still as earth-shattering as before, and his actions turned the tide, the palace was still destroyed in many places. The royal family is no longer what it used to be, and even the palace has been invaded. The ministers suddenly had a lot of thoughts. Several groups were originally fighting on the front line, but the ministers, eunuchs, and political officials from various places commanded the exhausted generals, and surprisingly they started working together in unison. They want to see the intelligence in the capital, and the military power in their hands cannot make any mistakes at this juncture. After all, if you have soldiers in hand, you may not have to fight to the end, and you will have the ability to protect yourself in the future. Faced with the situation where these generals were outside and their orders were not given to them, for a while, the dynasty had no ability to control them at all. So on the 10th day, when the dynasty suffered a major tragedy, several armies reached a turning point in the war. The first day, the battlefield in the far north was broken, the grain and important fortresses were destroyed, a partial division was trapped behind enemy lines, and had no room to struggle. After holding on for 2 days, it had to open the city to surrender. For a time, the northern rebels were very powerful. The next day, the southwest pirates came to attack the city with troops. Although the old prime minister was assisted by the master of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, he was still seriously injured and was able to escape because the master was delayed. For several more days, several important battlefields seemed to have been negotiated before the war. They sent troops one after another or intimidated the opposing imperial army, resulting in larger bloody conflicts. The key battlefields even overturned and instantly became corrupt situation. During this period, several battlefields sent requests for help to the surrounding garrisons, but there was almost no news from them. Since there were no reinforcements, defeat on the battlefield was natural. Nearly half of the dynasty's territory was lost in just half a decade, and the whole country was shocked. Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, that's all, my dear friends. I will not discuss the past matters with you anymore. Now I just hope that someone will be willing to visit Xi'an City on my behalf to calm the gap between our dynasty and the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and beg them to come again. The army is temporarily lending a helping hand, but who wants to go? In the imperial palace, all the ministers and officials were silent. The Queen Mother was a little haggard and her eyes were dull. She had been forced to lose her face by all the speculations and discussions in the government and the public in the past few days. In addition to the incident in the palace a few days ago, the royal family's prestige was also greatly lost. Several relatives of the emperor took the opportunity to ask her to hand over her power. The second step was to abolish the young emperor and replace him with a more mature and capable one. Only in this way can the decline of the dynasty be restored. The Queen Mother did not dare to agree. If she agreed to this matter, she knew very well what consequences she would suffer as a Queen Mother who manipulated Chao Gang and brought the dynasty to a precarious state. But they pushed too hard and almost had to repeat the bloodshed in the palace a few days ago. Fortunately, the attitude of the founder is not clear. After all, she, the Queen Mother, was also a descendant of the ancestor tens of thousands of years ago. The palms and backs of her hands were all flesh, so the ancestor would remain silent. The founder didn't know why, but he announced his retreat after the last incident. Even those who wanted to see him for many important events in the dynasty recently were turned away. As a result, the pressure on the Queen Mother increased. Queen Mother, I wish to go. Finally, after a long silence, one of the ministers came out with a long sigh. This person is not a talented person, and he is not even a clean and honest official. He is usually good at eating, drinking, prostitution, and gambling, and he does a lot of things to take care of people's lives. However, he still had a little more conscience than those more disgusting court officials. At this time, he couldn't hide anymore and stepped out to take on this task. Everyone looked at him expressionlessly. Anyway, as long as there are people who are willing to do things, they are more likely to sit on the sidelines at this juncture. No matter what, whether the dynasty can survive or not, they only need to preserve their own strength and disperse to overseas islands in the future, so that they will not die with the dynasty on this already overwhelming giant ship. My dear, go ahead. The Queen Mother thought about it and couldn't even remember the name of the person who came out. She just saw that someone was willing to do the thing, so she nodded in agreement. Queen Mother, given this situation, our dynasty cannot live without a king in the court for a day. You should also consider preparing to retreat behind the scenes. Suddenly, one of the three prime ministers who had been silent until now, Ji Xiang, came out and spoke respectfully on the surface. The Queen Mother was shocked and looked at this distinguished prime minister in disbelief. The person she single-handedly promoted to this position is also a close relative of hers, whom she regards as someone who has the heritage of her natal family standing behind her. But now, Ji Xiang actually asked her to step down. And this was without any prior notice. You, Ji Xiang, do you know what you are talking about? It's not that the AI family is unwilling to delegate power, but that the emperor is young now and cannot do so. The Queen Mother calmed down and said. Prime Minister Ji looked at his nose and heart, and responded calmly, now that the dynasty is in turmoil, and the emperor is too young, things have to be prioritized. The most important thing right now is to find ways to stabilize the situation of internal and external difficulties. Why not ask the Queen Mother to issue an edict? Establish a new emperor to restore the decadence of our great dynasty. Igia. Although she had known that such a day would come, it came too suddenly and too quickly. The Queen Mother, who had not yet enjoyed enough of the Queen Mother's happiness, began to hesitate. She also wanted to refuse forcefully, and even called the imperial guards to kill Ji Xiang on the spot to increase her prestige. But she couldn't do it. Because her confidence in the palace all came from the power of her natal family, and she used her power to very boldly delegate a lot of power to her natal family. She originally thought that her natal family would never do it anyway. Betrayed her. Until today. She discovered that she was wrong. Please also ask the Empress to establish a new emperor. All the civil and military officials bowed down as if they had been relieved for a long time. Looking at the crowd of officials who were forcing the palace, the Queen Mother had no doubt that if she disagreed, they would dare to really take action against her. Kaiser probably agrees with this group of people, otherwise why would he not take any action now? The Queen Mother reacted bitterly for a moment. I see, she said why she has been trying to meet Kaiser recently to ask for some countermeasures and seek Kaiser's protection, but she has never been able to see him. It turned out that Kaiser had already given up on her. The true supreme being of the royal family is the founder. She is just a secular woman who is greedy for this noble power and insists on occupying the emperor's power. Even from beginning to end, she found that she was not smart at all. She obtained the position of queen through her beauty, and gained the title of Queen Mother after giving birth to a son. After that, she was coerced by her family, powerful ministers, and various people with interests. Until she is where she is today, there is no step that is not her fault. He walked out firmly on his own. Sorry, the AI family agrees. It was as if all her strength had been drained from her body, and she sat back on the phoenix chair. Next, the ministers handed over various things that they had been preparing for an unknown period of time, such as imperial edict documents and certain seals, and the Queen Mother followed them almost instinctively. She finished this like a puppet, and several masters of dressing up as palace maids led her back into the depths of the harem. It wasn't until she was led to a strange place that she suddenly reacted. Lengong. This isn't the AI family going back to Fengfu Palace. I don't want to come here. Queen Mother Huibing, from now on, you will live here. This is the imperial edict of the founding emperor. A eunuch responded politely. The Queen Mother felt as if she had been struck by lightning. After being stunned for a moment, she took a deep look at the countless palaces, beautiful buildings and jade buildings behind her, the countless jewels and jewels that everyone envied. Then she looked at the small area in front of her, the furnishings and buildings. The cold palace buildings are all very cold. She finally shed a few tears, because she knew that from now on, she would probably spend her whole life here. Unless the dynasty is turned upside down, and even the royal family is overturned, but there are intact eggs under the overturned nest, then her end will probably not be much better than living in the cold palace. 2 days later, a group of officials came out of the imperial capital, which had gained a lot of vitality due to the emergence of a new emperor who was young and powerful. After being sent to the gate of the imperial capital by his colleagues and letting the person leave, the official who was sent looked deeply behind him at the political center of the entire dynasty. Well, it's a good idea to leave this whirlpool at this time. Even the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is by no means an easy person to deal with. I'm afraid that after this trip, life or death will still be unpredictable. Why did I feel so hot-headed at that time? Did you agree to this? This is the bureaucrat who agreed to the Queen Mother's mission to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Just after they started another journey, used the teleportation technique several times, and traveled billions of kilometers. Sir. There is a spy from the front reporting that there is an existence from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce who wants to go with you. From the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce? Let's meet with this person. Yes. When the person came to meet him, the bureaucrat found that the person looked like a rat creature, with a rather agile aura all over his body. The only difference from the people in the other world is that he is extremely small and looks like a miniature version of a tiny creature. In the other world, even being a pet is considered disgusting, so it is regarded as the level of an insect. However, to this day, because of the other party's status, the bureaucrats do not dare to have any contempt, and salute repeatedly. I am a Kaliao who is on duty in the administrative department of the imperial dynasty. I wonder who you are. I am the president of the branch of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce in the city, and I have met your excellency. The visitor was not too restrained and polite, and even showed a certain intimidating demeanor. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3249. The two entered the official's flying car and started flying together. During this period of flight, it would be difficult to enter the mysterious realm within a few dozen days. So during these days, the official named Kaliao made some insinuations and asked about the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. The other party seemed to be very curious about the dynasty's administration and its strategies for the upcoming war, and asked about many key issues one by one. Considering the temporary alliance situation of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, he confessed a lot of inside information without thinking too much, and even told a lot of the truth about the dynasty's concession. Although it was not thorough, it also made that person the rat-like creature knew a lot. Master Kaliao, thank you very much these days. The front is the boundary of my Xiancheng. When we get to Xiancheng, I will be the host. We will not return until we are drunk. Okay, I also got a lot of information about your Chamber of Commerce from the branch president. Why don't we go into Xiancheng hand in hand next time, so that the branch president can introduce me to some of the senior officials of your Chamber of Commerce? That's it. I want to get off the bus here, and, you must get off the bus too. You. Call out. Boom. It is only 1 billion kilometers close to the official area of Xiancheng. This distance has long been vaguely under the control of the Xiancheng Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. However, this secret control power cannot fully cover all aspects. Therefore, the explosions and noises of fighting here only lasted for a dozen breaths. When the border troops of the Galaxy Commercial Department came to inspect with all their strength, they only saw the aftermath of the fighting. Even the masters who were killed were turned into powder by the enemy. The strength is probably close to that of the subdivision, and the person killed is very strong. The person who killed the opponent is definitely at the level of the subdivision. What is this? You analyze the traces quickly. I want to know as quickly as possible the strength and various information of the two parties who died here. It is best to get the answer to their identities. Yes. This group of soldiers has already had technological equipment. Although the leaders and soldiers are all native creatures of the other world, no matter from any angle, they are very different from the Imperial soldiers. They have already surpassed them in terms of technological strength. The combat power is naturally reborn. A large amount of data and on-site intelligence were obtained by the analysis department, and then through scientific analysis, the key intelligence of Jabai was obtained. This information was quickly sent to the Xiancheng Galaxy Chamber of Commerce headquarters, and the Black God Jia Yan personally took over. What? A senior official from the Imperial dynasty was killed near our Xiancheng. Yes, according to the analysis of the intelligence department and the recovery of materials at the scene, this official should be a senior official of the dynasty, and he should have been sent down by the dynasty a few days ago to negotiate cooperation matters with our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. As for killing this person, we seriously suspect that this person is an extraterrestrial visitor whose basic appearance is even highly similar to the life forms in our galaxy. After listening to the intelligence officer's analysis, Jia Yan took over all the intelligence contents and waved his hand, causing the other party to respectfully retreat. Black God Jia Yan looked at the specific intelligence data, and soon his eyebrows twisted into the character Sichuan. The answer is obvious. This was an attack on the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and the other party deliberately attacked and killed those who came to attend the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce meeting. The purpose was to make the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce and the dynasty lose the possibility of further cooperation. If done properly, it might be possible to take the opportunity to clear the relationship between them and the dynasty. In this way, the overall combat effectiveness will be greatly reduced. Call the Imperial Court to collect this lord's relics and send them to the capital. Secondly, vigorously arrest the criminals. This matter has been made the top priority in the near future. As commanded. Hua Xiang, who was in charge of government affairs, stepped back, her eyes a little anxious. If this matter is not handled well, the bridge between the dynasty and the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is truly severed, and the chance of further union in the future is also reduced. This was a conspiracy, and the other party had no intention of covering up others' information or throwing dirty water on the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Even a fool can see that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has sent top experts to fight, and it is impossible to do such a thing that harms others and does not benefit oneself. Therefore, there must be other forces involved in the situation, but this depends on the dynasty being willing to continue sending cooperative and well-intentioned people. The current capital city is already in chaos. Those who are willing to cooperate, those who are enemies of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, are either bystanders, or those who want a share of the pie, plus some hidden enemy spies, or there may be surrenders. There are many factions. In short, how difficult it is for them to send a new envoy from the court where there is a lot of discussion. After all, an envoy has already died outside the gate of Suanken's destination, and the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce cannot protect the envoy approaching him. If he sends another envoy, he will have to consider his own safety. Hey, Dad, how about this? We send people over to negotiate with them. Jiao Makiao, who was holding his little head next to him and feeling a little unbearable in pain, cautiously offered his opinion. Black God Jia Yan nodded calmly. This is a good idea, but who should we send? The people who go are too weak and might be killed on the way. If we send strong people, our entire Chamber of Commerce among them, the safest thing is to go to the imperial capital in person, but what if the base camp is stolen? You have also played video games, right? In this case, there are several difficult choices, and everything will be fine when I choose. If you choose the wrong one, You might be doomed. That's right, it's so difficult. Reality is not a game. Mosquito prides himself on being a well-read child prodigy, but when faced with a dilemma, he becomes a little confused. In the end, Yan sighed. That's all, I didn't want to waste the power of my body at this juncture. What's wrong? Mosquito looked at his father's clone curiously. In fact, to her, he is like a biological father, because she has been with the black god Yan for decades while growing up. Although she also has a lot of closeness to the giant mosquito father, because both of them belong to the same family. The same person, but no matter what, it is difficult to have such a deep kinship with a giant mosquito at an altitude of more than 60 kilometers. So she often acts coquettishly with the black god Yan. When the real body left, I left a clone here as a foundation. I didn't want to let it go under such circumstances, but the current situation is extraordinary, and it can only violate the principle. Ah! Dad, did you leave a clone behind when you left? Is it as strong as you? These words you were used in such a way that even Yan was confused. But he was also used to his daughter's confusing words. Mosquito has long been accustomed to the fact that she has several biological fathers, and when she often talks about it, she means to get closer to the black god Yan. As long as you can understand it, no matter what the grammatical errors are. I'm afraid he's a little weaker than me, but he's still enough to handle this mission. Besides, he's a new face, so I'm sure he won't generate too much unnecessary hostility from the dynasty. With that said, Black God Yan walked towards the secret warehouse of the office. In the other world, secret bases can be built at will and are almost difficult to find. Because if you really want to do it, you can just find a hole dug by ants, go in, kill all the ants, and then come out of a secret room without anyone noticing. This is the secret room here. The nest that was previously dug for an unknown creature was used by Yan after it became vacant. A 30-kilometer-sized creature like an ape was quietly crawling here. Wake up! After the black god Yan approached, he used the power of one heart and another body to make a sound. The ape clone in front of me is not a dead individual. In fact, Yan's clones will not die as long as they are not shattered to pieces. They are always supported by the power from the main body. They can continue to live until the main body dies, or the materials used by the clone's body can no longer support life. Activity. The ape clone is just asleep. This is your way of existence to save the power of your main body. Most of Yan's clones do the same thing. For example, on the Earth, in the trade area, and in the Yin-Yang sect in the central star field of the Milky Way, his clones are stationed in each, and even in several places that Yan has visited. In fact, there are also clones of Yan, but those clones have long been ancient-level clones, their physical strength is too weak, and Yan has not visited again for a long time, so they have forgotten these clones, and they have in deep sleep. Well. The ape clone slowly opened his eyes. The eyes that were still a little confused at first began to glow slightly after coming into contact with the eyes of the black god clone. After a moment, they became extremely agile. He stood up. His body, which was more than 30 kilometers tall, made the black god clone and Mosquito look extremely small in comparison. I'll be there right away, but I need to find a handy weapon before I leave. Okay, do you need to arrange some manpower? No, it's useless if there are too many people to do this kind of thing. But we have to go through the formalities here and get me an identity. Otherwise, the trip will be official and it will still be easy to cause problems. Okay. After a brief exchange of words between the two parties, the ape clone stepped out of the secret warehouse. How powerful is this father? He looks very tall. Mosquito waited until ape father left and asked curiously from behind. Okay, your eyes have become vicious. Black god Yan was slightly surprised. Before Mosquito's complacent eyes flashed, he said, this clone is the real body's use of the results of the other world and the technological world. It took about 30 years to create. I'm afraid that in the pure world in terms of physical body and physical strength, he is the strongest clone. Isn't that better than you? Mosquito sighed. Xiaonazai, you are running against me, right? I just said that he is weaker than me. Not to mention the several methods that I can use in my real body, I only said that I have the ability to create a world that is no more than a few meters above me. A large-scale existence is not enough to pose a threat to me. But your clone dad is not far behind. Oh, now I have a great dad again. Seeing Jia Makiao pouting her little mouth happily, Black God Jia Yan shook his head in confusion. This sounds weird. Another daddy. Tisk tisk, those who didn't know better thought there was something wrong with her mother. Speaking of which, your mother must be a little older now. Although she is still far from reaching the limit of age, hundreds of years have passed by in a blink of an eye. The sooner she is transformed by the array gene, the better. So that she can prolong her life. It seems that no matter how busy she is, she still has to take some time to go out and get this matter done. Black God Jia Yan thought to himself. Jia Makiao rolled his eyes at him. I say this every time, but every time I go out, I come back. If I hadn't seen you, Dad, doing nothing for so many years, I would have thought you had another woman. What did you say about your father? Black God Jia Yan glared at her, making the little kid shrink back and dare not speak. Jia Yan is really busy. The situation in the world was turbulent, and he really couldn't take time out several times. Of course, this period was not wasted. In fact, he has been using his spare time to improve and modify the Tao gene technique. Without anyone knowing, he has made a lot of progress in this path. It can even be said that this is the direction of his cultivation that has made the most progress in the past few decades. In addition to the more perfect it is, the better it will be for his wife's formation gene transformation. He also has some selfish motives. Jia Yan himself also wants to take the path of genetic transformation. He was thinking that if one day he also transformed into a perfect array genetic physique, the improvement would be too great. More than double, there may be about twice the increase in combat power, and later using the Onmyodo formation, you can also use more types of moves, such as the Yin-Yang Dao formation Dao Quan. The above formation types all require a certain array of Dao genes to practice, and each type has its own function. Many are not good at combat, but are diverse. It has various uses, and it is also a huge improvement from the side. Jia Yan was already salivating. Pity. Even if I am sure that I have finished modulating Satsuma Temple's genes, I still have no clue about my own body. After all, I am too strong. The stronger the person, the greater the restriction on improvement. This is true even if he finds another way. Since the array gene can more than double his level, no matter what the principle is, it will naturally be limited by the laws of nature in the universe. In fact, it is not difficult to understand. It is like building a new house. Is it easier for you to build a new one on the ruins, or is it easier to build a new one where there is already a house? What if this newly built house is even built on top of an extremely majestic building, and the building needs to be kept intact while adding to it? The stronger the person, the bigger the house will be. The difficulty of this is self-evident. That's all, I think too much. Black God Jia Yan laughed and shook his head. Those things are considered by the real body. As a clone, just think about and do your own things well. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3250. Everyone is the same body. As long as he doesn't do anything wrong or have any indifferent thoughts, then he is essentially a true body. In the following time, he can live like his true body forever. Isn't this enough? Why bother thinking so much? The existences that take action, must be those outer domain existences. Black God Jia Yan has received information from his true body. He knows more information than the real body. After all, the real body has recently been transmitting information to him through one-way energy transmission channels, but the newly acquired information on his side cannot be transmitted back. Collecting the information we have, we can see that these masters or forces from the outside world must be fighting for something, or have some purpose, otherwise they would not attack other outside forces that have emerged, and their strength it is absolutely huge, and although it may look inconspicuous, there must be many forces that are comparable to, or even far beyond, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Black God Jia Yan sat down and thought. After gathering a large amount of information, we can see that the world here is indeed a place with deep water. But it is definitely a place where strong people can break through. Otherwise, there would not be so many cosmic masters gathered together. But I still have a question. Is the truth like the information coming from the real body? Is this world really like what the Purple Water sect people said, a place where they can't even stop the masters from the outside world from running amok? I don't believe it when I think about it. Otherwise, the inner world has been tossed over and over again by the masters from the outside world. Not to mention the power, even the human race has been changed countless times. This is something that is common in the entire universe. If they were really that weak, at least a dozen similar incidents had happened and they hadn't destroyed their country yet. So, the world here is by no means as simple as what the Purple Water sect said. He doesn't know, which means the Purple Water sect hasn't reached that level yet. Black God Jia Yan suddenly understood. This water may be deeper than I imagined. Kill. Poof. A figure was fighting fiercely in mid-air, causing the bloody air to splash out on the left side of the formation. All enemies cannot get close to its body. What a powerful master, you truly live up to your reputation. Just after this figure killed one master after another without any blood in mid-air, surrounded by many troops, a monster with 70 or 80 limbs flew out of the circle of enemy troops. The strong man who fought bloody battles silently observed this man, narrowed his eyes, and backed up dozens of kilometers. Since you are so strong, why don't we try some tricks? The monster with 70 or 80 limbs grinned, but it was impossible to tell where the mouth was and where the body was. Haha, that's not necessary. Your Excellency, I am just a consultant to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. I am not here to fight for life and death. The powerful creature, who was like a god before, stepped back with great vigilance. He is a top-ranking late-level domain lord from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. And unlike outsiders' imagination, these masters cannot be said to be Jia Yan's subordinates, but just extremely fair collaborators. In the early stages, they believed that their interests were consistent with Jia Yan's, so Jia Yan asked them to fight, and they readily accepted. But so far, many battles have been fought, the enemy is getting stronger and stronger, and they are gradually starting to want to retreat. But this thing is easy to get in, but difficult to get out. This master was like this. He didn't expect that he would defeat one or two masters at the senior domain master level. The enemy didn't care about martial ethics and just came with a super double. It was fine when I came, but I can't go back. Hey, we're hitting the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. The other party snorted coldly. Among the masters of the major forces who were killed last time, there was this person's subordinate. At this time, he personally took action just to avenge his subordinates. Then come. Everyone has a temper. It seems that in the central star field of the Milky Way, top masters have long been accustomed to bossing around. The two stared at each other and collided with each other in mid-air for a moment. Everyone was shocked. So strong. They all had similar thoughts in their hearts. As expected, they are visitors from other lands similar to those people. The other party's expression remained unchanged, and he had already made an inner assessment. On the contrary, the lower-level domain master who was working with Jia Yan had a gloomy expression. He really didn't have the slightest idea of living or dying with Jia Yan. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is just a stepping stone for them to enter the other world. They chose to join this battle because they wanted to get closer and understand everything about this world. Everything, and the reason why they signed the agreement with the trade zone in the first place, is purely because the other world is the legendary place where strength grows. That is, they want to come to the outside world to find breakthrough opportunities. For this goal, they are willing to take some risks. However, after reaching this point and attracting a master who could rival them, things changed. With the extent of their involvement with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, they cannot be directly tied to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Sir, what is your purpose? Do you really want to separate life and death from me? The eyes of this expert from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce became sharp. He also has a temper, and if the other party is still prepared to be arrogant, he will choose to be serious about it. When it comes to a fight, as a top expert in the galaxy whose information is rarely grasped by people in the other world, he has to prepare a few of the same level to die if he has a few trump cards. Of course, he couldn't guarantee whether the opponent's trump card could hurt him. Experts like them are cautious, and he doesn't want to expose his trump card because of this kind of thing. The person on the other side had an unwavering expression and continued to exchange blows, but unexpectedly took a few steps back and asked the other subdivision masters who were swarming up to retreat. If you withdraw now and no longer care about all the affairs on this front, I can let you retreat safely. No one in our army will stop you. Okay, I hope you can keep your promise. If you violate this promise, you will all know the consequences of teasing me. The top expert from the Milky Way looked at the people around him coldly, then turned into an afterimage and disappeared in an instant. The enemy's masters all had their eyes fixed on this top figure of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Only when he turned into a looming dot did some of them heave a sigh of relief. This person from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is really scary. He was really angry just now. If he uses any moves that we can't understand, I'm afraid not many people can resist him. Strong, too strong. Fortunately, judging from today's situation, within the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, these powerful people are probably working on their own, and even Jia Yan may not be able to instruct them. No matter what, if we drive this person away in this battle, we will have won half the battle. All the top players were very happy. Only the guru-level master, and definitely not an ordinary guru-level expert, was meditating deeply. If this Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is a visitor from outside the territory, then their next plan of action will definitely not sit still and wait for death. They must also know those rumors from the outside territory. What a troubled time. This master is not happy at all because the battle situation has begun to change in their favor. Because he knew that all of this was just an appetizer. The real war will not officially begin until those beings from the outside world take action face to face. Snapped. Dad, those seniors on the battlefield are really not loyal. They left when a slightly powerful master came out. Now that the enemy is facing us, what do they mean? Mosquito was so angry that he slapped the intelligence paper on the table, smashing it into pieces. Don't be impatient. You have to know that this is human nature. They only have a cooperative relationship with us, not a superior-subordinate relationship. Being able to assist in combat to this level under my orders is already quite loyal. I know, but I'm just angry. Mosquito's image as a quiet girl in the outside world was completely destroyed in front of her father, with no regard for her personality. Black God Jia Yan shook his head. No matter what agreement or commitment, to put it bluntly, everything still depends on interests and strength. The 5 major alliance masters from the central star field of the Milky Way are still extremely mysterious to Jia Yan. Even he is not sure about the true strength and purpose of these guys. Now that they have reached this level, he can nothing to complain about. They are willing to take action because they are worried that I will not let them in and out in the future. Jia Yan has sufficient self-awareness of the reasons for the goodwill of this group of people. If it weren't for this reason, they wouldn't have listened to the request of the Avatar to fight. Even if the real body came, it would still be a lot worse. After all, no matter how strong he is, can he really fight with the body of a lower-level territory lord against 6 powerful lower-level territory lords? You must know that these 6 are probably a little different from the ordinary lower-level territory lords. They come from the central star territory of the galaxy, and they are also the top beings among the ancient forces. The means and abilities they each master, perhaps even among themselves, it is impossible to know everything. Instead of expecting them, it is better to rely on yourself. Besides, if the enemy really attacks this mysterious city, I believe that from the perspective of this group of friends, they will not stand idly by. After all, this is the core of the other world leading to the Milky Way. It was so destroyed by the enemy that even they couldn't get in or out. Jia Yan just clung to this point, which was equivalent to defeating the opponent during this period of time. After confirming that these 6 masters, even if they disappeared temporarily, would be destined to reappear in a while, Jia Yan ignored them. Instead, he started arranging troops on his side. We cannot rely on the 6 top strikers. The combat effectiveness of the entire Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is equivalent to breaking bones. He wanted to use the existing power in his hands, find ways to squeeze out the power, and work with the dynasty to deal with foreign enemies. This is already a matter of life and death to a certain extent. It's just that Jia Yan thinks so, but the dynasty may not be like that. Everything still depends on the reaction of the ape clone after he goes to the capital. If the reaction is wrong, the entire nominal alliance may collapse. Perhaps the entire dynasty world has guessed the actions between the dynasty and the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and many people have their eyes fixed on the capital and Xiancheng. However, the first and most unfavorable news came out, making countless people sigh with regret. A dynasty official who volunteered to resolve the old grievances between the 2 sides was unexpectedly attacked and killed by an unknown force as he approached Xiancheng. He eventually fell to the ground only a few billion kilometers away from his target. A novel version has been circulated in the market for a long time, which depicts this official who has handled cases of indiscriminate use of human life and whose hands and feet are not clean, as a person who punishes rape and eliminates evil, longs for the light in his heart, and even wants to use a helping hand to restore the good of the corrupt officialdom of the entire dynasty. However, the final destination of this good official is to shed his blood on the road of serving the country and the people wholeheartedly. It makes the listeners sad and the listeners shed tears. Like some kind of whirlwind, these rumors and novel versions spread throughout the entire dynasty overnight. The people spontaneously carried out a large-scale memorial ceremony for the just official, and some officials were also inspired by him. I swear to join the category of good officials, and then continue to commit corruption in the afternoon. All in all, the good influence is huge, and in it, there is a vague point of view that is subtly accepted by the people. The alliance with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is the optimal solution for the current dynasty, and it is even more important. What the people want. It's like putting the top officials of the dynasty on the fire. On normal days, the royal family and many powerful ministers could ignore these demands of the people, but today's dynasty, after the changes in the palace and the turmoil of the Queen Mother's resignation, has long been severely damaged. If it continues to fail to follow public opinion and implement people's wishes, if you need business, there may be another incident in the palace, and the people who come back are likely to be a large number of civilians. Since then, officials have also softened. There are even many official newspapers that promote the benefits of forming an alliance with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce from time to time. In this situation, a lonely strong man was flying in the passage of strong men entering the dynasty. Although every strong man can come and go freely in the sky. But this kind of thing is like swimming in the sea. There will always be a road suitable for ships to sail. In principle, every ship can drive around at will and can always find its way to the destination. To find it, if you don't follow the waterway, you will easily lose your way, encounter dangers, or be greatly slowed down. Therefore, even a strong person is destined to have a flight path in the sky. The world here is so vast, and this kind of path is extremely necessary. Ape-like furry creatures flying in the air. The journey is nearly halfway. Well. Suddenly, the ape creature had a thought in his mind and looked in a certain direction with a calm expression on his face as he slowed down. "Sir, I didn't expect you to discover this way." A figure that looked like a human being, but was not a human being, slowly emerged from the forest-like scenery below. The ape Jiayan looked at the other person expressionlessly for a few times. After some analysis, he asked calmly, "Your Excellency, are you not a native being from the other world? Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito?" Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3251. Yes, you are very discerning. We are from the Peter Galaxy. If we use your Milky Way to locate it, it would probably take more than 1 billion light-years to reach it. The people who claim to be their own way didn't seem to be in a hurry to launch an attack. The ape Jiayan sighed, "It's more than 1 billion light-years away. How mysterious the world here is. It actually gives people from 2 major galaxies who are destined to never come into contact with each other a chance to meet each other. Indeed, you probably never expected that you would die at the hands of someone more than 1 billion light-years away in this life, right?" The ape Jiayan couldn't help laughing. "Your Majesty, are you so confident that I will die in your hands?" "Yes, judging by the aura on your body, you are just a so-called master of the Tao in this world." He is not even a sub-teacher, but this Tao has reached the guru level. There is a huge difference between you and me. Do you still think that you have hard work, reason for survival? Jiayan asked again, "Your Excellency can see that I am not strong enough. Do you think that our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce can't see it? If they can see it, why do they give me the task?" This sentence spoke to the other party's heart. He shook his head and said, "Indeed, I was still worried about a trap or something. I have been tracking and observing you for several days, but today I am sure that there is no trap around you. So maybe you are a chess piece thrown by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce to attract our attention? Or are you an unpopular character sent out to die?" "Wrong, wrong, wrong." The ape Jiayan shook his head like a rattle, stretched out a plush ape finger and said, "I'll give you another chance. If you can answer correctly, I will let you go. You're not ashamed of your words, no need to guess, just show off whatever abilities you have." The opponent's self-proclaimed experienced master waved a long snake scorpion-shaped weapon in his hand with a gloomy expression. This is obviously a weapon made by some kind of otherworldly creature, and it is probably a vessel that has been strongly compressed. The overall strength is dozens or even hundreds of times stronger than when this object was a living thing. What an exquisite manufacturing process! In terms of utilizing raw materials from the other world, we, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, can't compare to you. A force that has only been in the other world for a few decades still wants to be compared with us. It's ridiculous. Let me give you a whip. The opponent's snake and scorpion weapon threw out an afterimage and hit the ape Jiayan hard. A master-level combat prowess, in other words, he is also an extremely powerful master of the lower realm master level. Of course, Jiayan didn't know whether other galaxies used the positioning of the lower level territory lord, but he was sure that this person had real abilities in the lower level territory lord. According to common sense, it is just a clone. Even Jiayan's clone is destined to be wiped out when faced with enemies at the lower levels of the territory lord. Even the most powerful Black God clone currently under Jia Yan's command, the last time he fought against a master of the lower level of the Territory Lord, the result was only a draw, and it was a bit embarrassing. What can I do to stop this ape clone? Sorry, he can't stop it? Why block it? Puff. When the opponent's Deo power offensive spread to the body, he felt that the fluffy creature in front of him was like hair all over his body, like a smooth thing as light as a feather, and the snake and scorpion whip slid across the body with one blow. At this time, the powerful man from the outer sea who claimed to be the original Deo could not sit still, and his eyes showed a little surprise. What kind of defense is this? It's just an unscrupulous method. Your Excellency sounds arrogant. You can't even do this little defense, right? The ape Jia Yan's words made the opponent furious. With a shake of his hand, the snake and scorpion whip followed him like a shadow and killed him again. But this time, the ape Jia Yan was not hit. The ape, who was well prepared, moved around with his body as light as a feather, ducking to avoid the heavy whipping. The hair is acting strange. Does it contain Tao power? It doesn't look like pure Tao power. What on earth are you? The strong humanoid man swinging the snake and scorpion weapon in his hand had a colorful expression on his face. Just now he said that he could easily kill the ape creature in front of him, but now that he couldn't defeat him with 2 moves, where could he put his face? Haha, it's just an accidental thing. Don't tell me, Your Excellency, you can't even deal with an accidental product like me. Can't deal with it? It's just ridiculous. I haven't used all my strength yet. The self-proclaimed creature snorted coldly, and for a moment, the whip shadow was heavy, and it actually pulled the ape clone into a space composed entirely of snake and scorpion whips. This is the ability of the powerful creatures in this world, the false space. The master-level illusionary space was such a thing that it almost caught the Tao back then. The ape clone did not dare to be careless. He only heard the whip shadows spinning around his ears like morning bells and evening drums. He quickly shook his body, and large tracts of hair bloomed in the air. Hidden in the endless whip shadow, the self-proclaimed Taoist has a thoughtful look in his eyes. It turns out that this weird little ape creature has very strange hair and body structure. Although the whole body has a plush appearance, it is streamlined on the inside, without any unnecessary fat or unreasonable structure. It seems reasonable, but it is completely unreasonable. Because real living organisms, whether they are growing up or inheriting genes from their ancestors, will more or less have a large number of redundant defects. These defects ultimately constitute biological diversity. Each living being has its own appearance characteristics, as well as various appearance characteristics that belong only to them. The hairy ape in front of him was so perfect that it made his heart skip a beat. Almost all the structures are strong in smoothness, and the hidden Tao power also acts as a force-relieving function. Almost no structure is redundant. If this is still an accidental product, what else in the world can be called a perfect product? Don't be confused. Keep attacking. I really want to know what areas I need to improve in the face of attacks from supermasters. Amid the whip shadows that filled the sky, the ape creature dared to preemptively make verbal provocations. What a reckless guy. Rao was the one who claimed to be a Taoist and had great courage, but he was also laughed out of anger. A whip shadow flashed out from among the endless whip shadows. Correspondingly, there is a piece of hair extending out from the surface of the ape creature, which contains not only the breath from the cosmic energy, but even the breath from some kind of Taoist energy. Buzz. Puff. These flashing hairs automatically form formations in the air, which is a sign of yin-yang Dao formations. Large pieces of hair form formations, cunningly entangled in the whips thrown by the enemy. It is obviously not an amazing power, but it tightly entangled the opponent's offensive. The person who claimed to be a Taoist hummed softly, and the endless whip shadow made the world seem to be full of grass and trees. All of them were thrown towards this tiny ape creature, with overwhelming momentum, as if it was going to be covered by the sky. Not as if, but really covered. The world seems to be upside down. Thousands of galloping whip shadows were fired at him, and the ape clone puffed up his body calmly. In an instant, his body seemed to have expanded 100 times in size, directly reaching a body similar to the opponent's size. But what swelled was just the hair on his body. The large tracts of hair stretched out to face all the whips like an endless wave, and the pieces were networked into formations to form an indestructible defense. One whip shadow after another was killed. I am so obsessed with it that I am completely unable to break through these hair defense formations. Slippery and sticky. It is clear that this ape-haired creature seems to have only the same strength. So far, it has not shown any energy beyond the submaster level. It may even be a little different from the peak strength of the submaster level, but he can control every second. The power at every moment is maintained at its peak. In other words, the ape creature can always maintain its strength close to the subdivision level, which is definitely not something that ordinary subdivisions can do. Of course, this alone is not enough for him to resist the attack of a true master-level master, and he will attack with all his strength without reservation. However, it has several advantages, such as the streamlined structure of the body, those weird hairs that contain Deo power, and the ability to control the hairs like arms, giving it a defense that gives Taoists headaches. Way. Let's fight. It doesn't look like he is very strong, but if he doesn't fight, he always feels that he is so obsessed with it. In the end, it becomes a protracted battle. Even if he wins, his vitality will be severely damaged, and his strength will drop to a dangerous level in a short period of time. Level. What's more, I don't know what the endurance of this ape creature is. If it can still maintain energy close to the submaster level, it may be his master level who will be exhausted first. As the fight continued, the overseas master who claimed to be a Taoist found it extremely difficult. Because with only those few defensive capabilities, the ape was invincible, and he was actually helpless against the opponent. Who? Light returned to heaven and earth. The self-proclaimed Taoist stretched out his arm, and a whip shadow of a snake and scorpion fell into his hand. Then he looked at the ape creature solemnly for a few times, turned around without saying a word, and turned into a flash of light and shadow and disappeared into the horizon. He really couldn't break through the ape Jia Yan's defense, and he couldn't think of a way to deal with it, so he chose to give up the attack. Alas, I don't have a very strong attack ability, or in other words, I haven't thought of an effective attack method until now. If there is an attack method like the Black God clone that stores the power of the real body, maybe I won't just be beaten passively now. The ape clone watched the other party leave, looking helpless. Yes, his avatar is almost entirely strong in defense and self-preservation, and there are even several trump cards that have not been exposed. But even so, in terms of attack ability, he is still several levels behind the Black God clone. An existence that can only passively defend and cannot counter-attack is destined to be not strong enough, because the enemy can attack calmly and leave calmly, and there will always be times when it can find your weakness. This is also the reason why the Black God clone said that this ape clone is not stronger than the Black God clone, but it is still powerful enough. It is indeed strong, but it is also indeed not strong enough. We're only halfway back now, so we can't be careless on the journey here. Who knows what method this guy will think of after he returns, or he may invite other experts to join forces to attack me. There is no trace of pride or complacency in the ape clone. He looked at the sky in front of him. Following the strong man's flight path, he continued to turn into fleeting lights and shadows. His hair suddenly turned into an aerodynamic shape, and he rushed directly towards the capital. There are still several days left. In these few days, it depends on how determined the other party is to kill him. After all, it is not cost-effective to send out other masters for such an envoy. After all, the troops coming from overseas and the extraterrestrial visitors hidden in the depths will not be unlimited. Otherwise, it will be up to the masters early. The dynasty was submerged, and the war could not reach its current level. Every master has his or her own huge role, and it is really unnecessary to use them to intercept an envoy who seems to be no more important than those on the battlefield. After all, everyone knows through intelligence that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has some kind of remote communication method, and there is a branch of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce near the capital. If the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce really wants to send an envoy, it can just find an employee from any branch to deliver the message on its behalf. Alright. Now they still insist on sending experts there, firstly to show respect for the dynasty, and secondly because the experts can negotiate more in-depth cooperation conditions and requirements. Since a top expert can't keep anyone here, they must think more about it. Because this is still the territory of the imperial dynasty anyway. If the battle lasts for a long time, it would be a big deal if the imperial dynasty's reinforcements arrive. Moreover, the enemy may have another consideration, and that is the top experts of the 6th Galaxy Chamber of Commerce who retired from the front lines a few days ago. Their current whereabouts have long been a mystery. It is said that they have left the battlefield, but they cannot even be included in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Don't go back. If 1 or 2 people come to escort the envoy, or even 6 of them come together, it will really become a natural trap. No matter how many island or foreign masters come, it is difficult to say that they will win. Because of these worries, the ape clone found that he was never sniped again while flying to the capital in such a swaggering manner. It left him feeling unfulfilled and a bit of a waste of emotion. After all, he has prepared some good moves to make other enemies who may come look good. What a pity. The imperial capital is not too far ahead. On this day, the ape clone saw the huge looming city in the distance. It has approached the imperial dynasty for about 100 million kilometers at high speed and has entered the warning range of the capital. Senior, is he from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce? Yes, I am the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce envoy who came to visit the imperial capital this time. Senior, please follow me. Just as they were approaching the imperial capital, a stream of light passed by. A group of masters wearing imperial military attaché uniforms acted as guards and greeters. Presumably one of the reasons for this was to show off their strength. But the ape Jia Yan turned a blind eye. After all, for him, even a master of the lower level of domain lord has fought head-on. If another extremely powerful existence comes, he will not be too afraid, let alone threaten him in person. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3252. Similar to the appearance of an ape, his avatar's personality is similar to that of a monkey who is fearless. That's why I'm not afraid of enemies along the way, but rather afraid of not having a fight. Ahead are some of your friends from your Chamber of Commerce who are waiting here for your seniors. I wonder if you want them to join the team. Let them come. A group of people flew over several small cities guarding the capital. Along the way, a large number of high-level officials from the Imperial Army joined the welcoming team, and some were high-level people from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce in these small cities, such as branch presidents. I've met this, senior. The branch presidents were a little confused after seeing the ape clones one by one. They claimed to know the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, or the trade area, and they already think that they know the background and strength of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. But no one has seen this master. Especially the unique momentum reminded them of Master Jia Yan, but no matter what, the appearance of the giant mosquito body in front of them was very different. Could it be that he is another domain master who is trying to win over the trade area? They never thought that this person would be a top powerhouse at the lower level of domain lord. After all, whether on the side of the dynasty or in the Milky Way, the post-territorial lords are top-notch beings who are hard to find. It would be impossible for them to just casually find a post-territory lord in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. After all, they didn't receive even a hint of news. but the domain lord level is also quite terrifying. Among this group of employees who are based in a small town near the capital of the imperial dynasty, only 2 have reached the domain lord level, and these 2 are being trained in key areas and may rise to a higher level in the future. Well, you're all pretty good. Ape Jia Yan looked at the group of people from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce who came to greet them. When he said this, everyone was keenly aware that he was looking at one of them, as if he was just praising this person. Following his gaze, he saw that this person was a minister of a satellite city affiliated with the capital. He was strong, but that was it. His merits were great, and there seemed to be nothing unique about him. Why did the messenger only look at him and speak? Could it be some kind of group relationship? But it looked like the branch president at the pinnacle level of the galaxy was confused by Monk Zhang as if he didn't know anything about this matter. Only the ape Jia Yan himself knows. The main materials for his doppelganger, which are the most critical hair-making sample tools, were all contributed by this branch chief. It is equivalent to the grace of reinvention. Why can't we look at it differently? Haha, your Chamber of Commerce is really full of talents. The officials of the Imperial Dynasty and I were ashamed when they saw it. The newly arrived accompanying civil servant of the Imperial Dynasty on the side said with a smile. The ape Jia Yan withdrew his gaze and turned around to chat with the other party. What did Shang Guan say? How can the Great Dynasty and our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce be compared to each other? Come on, I have never appreciated the beautiful scenery of the imperial capital. I want to take a good look at it today. Look. Messenger, please follow me this way. The crowd was filled with excitement, and they entered through the largest foreign guest gate in the capital that was specially opened for them. The gate, which is 200,000 kilometers high, made people dizzy when they saw it. There was a gut-wrenching feeling of being taken seriously. Roads were blocked along the way, but some people under surveillance could watch the guest envoys entering the city from a distance on the roadside. The imperial capital of your dynasty is truly extraordinary. Thank you, so that the envoy will know that our dynasty is not a wall that cannot be supported by mud. If we work together to repel the invading enemy in the future, your Chamber of Commerce will definitely have a place in the capital of this dynasty in the future. The civil servant seemed to be a senior official of the embassy that specializes in receiving foreign guests. He claimed to be an earl. It is extremely difficult to have a title in the imperial dynasty, which meant that he was not only a high-ranking official, but also a member of the royal family. Ape Gold is not surprised by honor or disgrace. In fact, these scenery have long been understood in the memories shared by the real body. The royal members of the embassy on the side had been secretly observing the expression of the envoy from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, until he could not see any shock or surprise in the ape Jia Yan, and he suddenly felt a little disappointed. The dynasty is really on the verge of collapse. This time they join forces with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, which is their life-saving straw. And it's still a very important life-saving straw. That's why they put on a grand show, deliberately cleared the roads, and held a grand welcome ceremony regardless of losses. But this failed to shock the other party, indicating that although this messenger has never been seen before, he must be a person who is not easy to fool. Both parties followed suit, and accompanied by a large number of entourages behind them, they arrived at the noble seats reserved for foreign guests. The cart was pulled by a giant flying elephant 5,000 kilometers tall. Come to my car and I'll ask you how you're doing on the way. Jia Yan casually pointed to an escort from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce who came to get in the car with him. And this person who seemed to be pointed out casually was the person who made his body materials that he had just looked at in a different light. The man's eyes lit up, and he immediately followed the ape Jia Yan into the carriage. Speaking of which, the status of the envoy may not necessarily be higher than that of the branch president of a city, but it depends on what level the envoy is. For example, the envoy who is discussing important matters with the dynasty at this time, his status and identity, in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, or in other words, in the galaxy trade area, it is definitely not low. Maybe they are some masters recently recruited from the galaxy. Therefore, the people from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce branch who greeted him had a very low attitude. I heard before that you found some strange materials. Can you tell me how you found them? The other party didn't expect at all that this ape-like messenger would not ask about the so-called information, but directly asked about the materials. There is nothing wrong in thinking that the real body and the clone are the same person, but the statement that they are the same person is also somewhat inaccurate. For example, the clone is still a consumable product in the eyes of the real body. The clone is generally not afraid of life and death, but to the greatest extent, they still hope that their lives can be longer. You can understand it if you think about it. Well, Sir Messenger, those strange materials I found before were from a certain acquisition process. It is said that they are materials that disappeared in ancient times. It's a pity that I tried to buy them all at a large price. Some people in the branch objected. So I only bought part of it, and the remaining part is now missing. Yeah, that's such a shame. Ape Jia Yan was a little disappointed. This clone of his is very unique, because the body has a unique structure, and it is stronger than the strong, but it is destined to be used against masters, so it may be damaged, and in that case, it is difficult to recover on your own. You need repair materials, and if he could collect the materials, it might be an extra chance for him to live. If you want, sir, I can go and inquire. That's good, please. Now you can tell me about the recent events in the dynasty. Good. The branch president's ability can only be said to be average, but he still has the basic reporting skills. He talked to Jia Yan about the news about the dynasty in the past few days, especially the secret incidents that happened in the palace before. As if I saw it on the spot. But how much of that is true is unknown. This is most of the information I have learned, but some of it is guessed based on my own information combined with some experience. Whether this is the case or not, I have to decide for myself, the envoy. Well, I understand. The palace is coming soon. Let's do this. Since you and I are destined, you will follow me into the palace. I believe there will always be some familiar people in the palace, who can also play a role in buffering and reconciliation. Yes. The branch president felt his mouth go dry. Although following this envoy as the main deputy will definitely be beneficial to his future career, it will also deepen the impression of him on the imperial court. You must know that they are people working near the imperial capital. If the situation happens again, after a sudden change, they might be the main targets of the dynasty, especially the deputy on this mission, and the danger level would be greatly increased. What? Don't you want to? No, having this kind of opportunity is something that no one else can even dream of. It's too late for me to be happy, so how could I not want to? The other party waved his hands repeatedly. After getting out of the car, I saw the giant palace I had seen before standing in front of me. For the ape Jia Yan, the memory of the real body is like his own, and many emotions from the past arise. But without giving him any more time to feel sad, the tall heads in front of the palace gate brought him back to reality. Welcome to this envoy from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. A person who was probably a phase-level being came forward with a smile on his face. Wherever I am, I'd like to thank you for raising an army to welcome us. I'm not very scared. Jia Yan, the ape, also used diplomatic rhetoric and made concessions to the other party. The branch president next to him was quite eye-catching. Many officials from the old dynasty were a little surprised, because they had known the branch president for a long time, and he did not seem to be valued by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. It seems that for no reason, he was able to stand next to the messenger. This made the branch president feel like he had a thorn in his back, and he felt that he would definitely have a difficult time in the future. Please come in. Please. Everyone entered the palace. Moreover, The ape Jia Yan and his party were specifically allowed to fly in. After all, they are too small. If they don't fly, they will have to travel for years and months. Besides, this is also disrespectful to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce and others. Now that the dynasty has a request from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, it naturally cannot cause any loss of face or discomfort to the envoy. Well, there is indeed the aura of the founder deep in the palace, but this aura is really as expected, not very stable. The ape Jia Yan had already heard the information and guessed that the founder was probably at the end of his strength, so he was not too surprised when he felt his weakening momentum in person. Playing along the way, the band that is said to be the best in the dynasty formed a long queue, stretching tens of millions of kilometers, and entered the inner hall of the palace. The person sitting on the dragon chair is a new person, and there is no longer the previous Fenji behind him. The Queen Mother who listened behind the curtain was gone. Jia Yan, who already knew this, would not be surprised. Meet His Majesty the Emperor. Jia Yan didn't make too many salutes, but just lightly hugged his fists. Some of the ministers frowned, but most of them watched with their eyes, nose, and heart. The emperor sitting in the palace had just ascended the throne not long ago, and the hearts of the people were all in unison. They would not have any thoughts of humiliating his subjects and dying. Moreover, the current dynasty is already in turmoil, and many high-ranking officials are engaging in small tricks outside, regardless of who is in power. Messengers don't need to be polite, please give me a seat. Jia Yan was slightly surprised when he returned the chair. Since ancient times, no dynasty, especially a powerful country, would allow the dignity of the royal family to be even slightly insulted. Unexpectedly, this emperor was willing to give himself such treatment. But that's it? Judging from his calm face and clear speech, he lacks a certain domineering attitude that belongs to the emperor. I am afraid that in a peaceful country, he can be a fairly well-behaved emperor, but in this chaotic era, there is no such thing as a wise king. This time I am sent as an envoy to the dynasty. I want to represent our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce and form an alliance with the dynasty. Secondly, I also express my deep sympathy and condolences for the last time your envoy was sent to our Chamber of Commerce and was killed by unknown persons on the way. Alas, this emperor also deeply regrets what happened to the Qing family. Our dynasty has lost a trustworthy pillar of the country. But it is precisely because of this that I can see with my own eyes your demeanor as an envoy from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. I really appreciate it. It's an eye-opener. It was obvious that the new emperor was a flatterer. Moreover, his role and status were placed extremely low, and it was good to have such an attitude of asking for help. However, he forgot that he was no longer the ordinary royal family before, but represented the entire dynasty. Some of the ministers below already showed dissatisfaction on their expressions. When the Queen Mother listened to the government behind the curtain, although she kept issuing incompetent orders, she managed to maintain the majesty of the dynasty. None of the many barbarian tribes in the surrounding areas dared to show off their power in the palace. But the newly appointed emperor seemed to be upright and peaceful, but when he said these words, he lost the emperor's bearing for no reason, and even the momentum of the dynasty was also lost to the envoy. Taken away. Before they even say a few words, you are already at a disadvantage. Is this called negotiation? It's basically a role that gives away people's heads. The ape Jia Yan also roughly understood the emperor's character and nodded with a slight smile. After chatting with each other for a few words, the topic officially entered the topic. There are many ministers present who are welcoming us this time. What they will talk about here is at most the general direction and key issues. Later, there will be a lot of details and even more terms that cannot be known to outsiders. Therefore, in a seemingly warm and welcoming scene, the dynasty's face was taken care of, and the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce successfully negotiated terms without suffering any loss. Afterwards, Jia Yan and his designated deputy were taken into the meeting hall of the palace, which was quite close to the main hall. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3253. Most of the civil and military officials were gone, and those who entered were all ministers with real power. Now is the time to talk about the real terms. Your Excellency, Ambassador, please forgive me for my words. Just now in the main hall, the emperor of this dynasty has given you great concessions and respect. Please do not make any mistakes in the future and do not press forward step by step. A minister behind him spoke to Jia Yan in a low voice. Everyone present is not an expert. This kind of whisper is just superficial, and everyone can hear it. But no one said anything negative, indicating that they also thought so. Just now, the emperor himself was really a little bit ridiculous, his posture was too low, which made the ministers feel ashamed. Haha, I certainly know this. The emperor has many people and has given me such high standards of courtesy. However, I am not a person who is unclear about his status, so he will not do anything to his face again. As long as you understand. The minister shrank back again. The ape Jia Yan glanced at the officials around him. They were all walking around minding their own business, and no one looked at him seriously. It seems that the terms behind the scenes are difficult to negotiate. A battle of words is inevitable. However, he sensed it and felt that there were some extremely shocking momentums in the side hall. In addition, there were several guru masters in the minister's queue. In this way, the power formed pressure, the average master level dare not look directly at the sharp edge, let alone on the surface, it is just a messenger who is not even a junior master. They want to use force and pressure to get more benefits in the formal contract. However, as Jia Yan's clone, he was not afraid of anything else. Facing the pressure of the strong, he was really not timid at all. Lord Messenger, these guys want to use their masters to control the situation. You must stay calm. The deputy next to him, who was pointed out by Jia Yan, quietly transmitted the message. He also took on the role of deputy envoy. Well. Jia Yan nodded lightly. Sorry, Your Excellency Jia Yan, someone may have been disrespectful to you earlier. After the emperor took his seat, he repeated these commonplace words. If Jia Yan initially thought that this guy was a little bit like pretending to be a pig and eating the tiger, but he still does so far, it can only show that he has a really weak character. We chatted some more casually, but before we knew it, the main topic was picked up by the ministers next to us. This emperor is very shrewd, but he is really a bit timid. Forgive me, it is impossible for the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce to accept this request. They don't even agree to send millions of troops. If we can't provide even this small amount of troops, how will it help our dynasty? I'm sorry, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, live in your dynasty and have been working hard to be a mere Chamber of Commerce force. The escort force of the Chamber of Commerce under my command is only a few 100,000. If we give 1 million troops, we have to draw support from the forces within the galaxy. Human beings are a completely uneconomical deal for us. You don't have millions of troops? Who are you kidding? You and I are like grasshoppers on a rope now. Today you are unwilling to send millions of troops to support. In the future, you will face tens of millions or even tens of millions of enemy troops. How can you deal with it? Got it? Jia Yan, the ape, seemed to be persuaded and remained silent for a long time. Finally, he reluctantly nodded and agreed with the senior foreign attendant's words. 1 million soldiers is not impossible, but this time it will be very expensive for our Chamber of Commerce to recruit troops from this world. I hope that the dynasty can support part of the funds for sending troops. Otherwise, for our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, it will definitely be a strain. It is better not to. It's cost-effective to send troops. Lord Messenger, how much do you need? When the emperor heard this, he couldn't help but ask the amount directly with a smile on his face. Several ministers nearby couldn't help but hold their foreheads. This emperor is indeed worthy of being from an imperial family. He is not stupid, otherwise everyone would not recommend him, but he is really too happy. Let's do this. Our Chamber of Commerce only needs the dynasty to pay 1% of the dynasty's annual tax. After all, we also know that the dynasty's tax revenue has dropped significantly recently. It is impossible for the lion to open its mouth. 1%? Of course that's okay. The emperor heard that it was only 1%, which was not a big deal at all. But the ministers' faces turned extremely ugly for a moment. 1% is very little? That's a lot, okay. You must know that this may be 1% of the tax revenue of the entire dynasty. How big is the dynasty? How many people do you rule? Even if this 1% of tax revenue is the entire assets of countless large forces, it means that this wave will directly enrich the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and may cause its accumulation in the dynasty to skyrocket several times. This is because the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has already achieved a dominant position in several major industries, otherwise it would have been hundreds of times more likely. Now that the Emperor has agreed to your conditions, let's talk about other things. These ministers looked ugly and continued to discuss other conditions with the ape Jia Yan. They defended each other point by point and even criticized each other like slapping the table. Even those master-level super experts couldn't help but exude a strong momentum, as if they were about to take action in anger at the next moment, but Jia Yan was unmoved. Move. No one could accept the fact that this messenger was not affected by the aura of the top masters. Your Excellency, the meeting is already halfway through, why don't we take a break and wait until the afternoon to discuss it again? Ken. Someone suggested taking a rest. Jia Yan, the ape, knew that they must have other arrangements, so he couldn't help but be vigilant and agreed. As expected, it didn't take long for someone to come forward. While eating delicious food and enjoying the dance of several humanoid concubines, someone came forward and said that they wanted to see the top masters from the galaxy. This is my deputy. His strength may not be very strong. Why not let him come forward to experience the strength of the same level? Jia Yan was non-committal and named the deputy beside him. The branch president who was brought here halfway still didn't know why he had gained the favor of this messenger. Now he was singled out inexplicably, and his heart beat like a drum for a while. Yes, I would also like to ask my colleagues in the imperial court to give me some advice. Everyone was a little disappointed, and they wanted to provoke the messenger to die personally. Even during the banquet, it was impossible to injure the Galactic Chamber of Commerce envoy, but he could still destroy his arrogance. Unexpectedly, he refused to fight and pushed out his so-called deputy. How strong is this? They all knew the president of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce branch in the city near the imperial capital. To put it bluntly, since the last incident where Jia Yan caused chaos in the capital city of the imperial dynasty, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce and the imperial dynasty have maintained a certain tacit understanding. They will not open large branches in the capital city. At most, there will be a resident. The real transaction content is all in the nearby capital city satellite city. These places immediately became the gold-selling caves of the capital's dignitaries. Therefore, these branch presidents have become big businessmen in their eyes. But businessmen are businessmen, and the presidents of the major conferences they know are not powerful beings. It won't be the second division. Let's do this. We can send a peak guard to fight with him. Is that okay? Of course it's possible. The ape Jia Yandan spoke calmly. The branch president's expression changed. Seeing Jia Yan's firm face, he sighed and could only bite the bullet and say nothing more. I've met the president. I didn't expect that we would see each other in such a scene this time after we said goodbye last time. The guard who was singled out was the commander of the palace guards. His status was not low, and his strength was at the peak of the Dao, close to the subdivisional level. When the two parties met before, it was inside the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce branch in Satellite City. One of them was an honest businessman and the other was a customer. Unexpectedly, not long after they passed, they would meet again in the competition arena. Let's get started, stop at the two positions. After all, we and I are just having fun. When the ministers spoke, both sides immediately understood and began to test and attack. As expected. Jia Yan looked at the less professional competition from below and understood something. The action of the guard was relatively large. It was obvious that the other party wanted to use the show of force to gain concessions from Jia Yan on other issues. After a few moves, the deputy branch president felt a little stretched. After giving in, he retreated to the audience. The gap between the two sides is still quite large. After all, one is the president of the Chamber of Commerce who has been at peace for many years, and the other is the guard leader who practices martial arts all day long. Their positions are very different, not to mention that Jia Yan can see that the other party is much stronger. The president of the department is on the front line. I accept it. Your Excellency, the envoy, I see that your strength is also at the subdivision level. It is better to choose a different day than to hit the sun. Why don't you let me ask you for your clever tricks? The guard leader spoke calmly. He actually invited the ape Jia Yan to fight. The ministers all looked at the scene with amusement. The emperor frowned and said, Commander Sheng, we are on good terms with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and the envoy is a distinguished guest of the imperial court. Why don't we discuss it next time when we have the opportunity? The emperor is worried. Why don't you let me have a few moves with this brother? I just saw his moves on the stage and it also made me happy. However, the ape Jia Yan slowly stood up from the chair. Lord Messenger, this matter. The branch president came down from the ring just now and saw that Jia Yan was about to fight. He was afraid that he might have made a mistake and quickly stepped forward to ask for something. Jia Yan waved his hand to silence him. The branch president's worry is not unreasonable, because although the other party cannot take the life of the clone, it is likely to attack Jia Yan with force and then gain the initiative in the subsequent talks. It is okay for the envoy to lose personally, but he is now the representative of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. His defeat means that he is at a disadvantage in the temporary confrontation with the dynasty. Although it is an alliance, the relationship between the two parties is by no means harmonious. It doesn't matter. Jia Yan got on the stage with a calm and relaxed look. Just this kind of behavior made the other party's commander look solemn. An expert will know if there is one as soon as he takes action. This style alone is enough to crush the branch president who just fought against the leader. None of the ministers below were weak. Seeing the envoy's gaze change, and his aura suddenly becoming a little unfathomable, they all fell into silence. They know that the messenger of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is destined to be more than a simple role. It is said that on his way to the capital, he was also attacked by the envoys from the imperial dynasty to Xiancheng. But unlike the envoys from the dynasty, he resisted the sneak attack alone. There is definitely something fishy about this matter. A person who looked like a subdivision master actually resisted the attack that had killed a subdivision master. Either it means that this envoy has a big secret, or it means that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is related to the so-called sneak attack force. It may even be that the so-called sneak attack was directed and staged by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Then the purpose of this alliance is worth studying. Please enlighten me. While talking, the two people on the stage were already moving. Puff. With the same move, the guard leader directly used the move he had just used to defeat the branch president. Jia Yan carried the ape's plush hands behind his back, as if invisible, and faced the opponent's attack directly. Pyridine. What was unexpected was that with such a non-dodgeable movement, the guard leader's attack seemed to hit some smooth object and slided past the opponent's body. The leader of the guards was completely confused. Everyone around him seemed to have seen something incredible. It's not that this clone is very powerful. On the contrary, they could not even tell the specific strength of the envoy, as if they had cancelled out the opponent's offensive without using any power. What on earth is this? Everyone was astonished and saw that the guard leader looked ugly and launched another attack again. Be careful, Lord Messenger. The opponent drew his weapon. Originally, weapons could not and would not be used in such a friendly competition, but the other party launched a weapon offensive under the instructions of some ministers. Jia Yan also looked like he was enduring it silently. The powerful sword edge struck the center of the ape creature's head. What shocked everyone was that the envoy was still as calm as ever, refusing to hide. Careful. You know, Jia Yan's ape clone body, although it is 30 or 40 kilometers in size, is the largest among all clones. But compared to the life forms in the other world, it is much smaller. The leader of the guards is also about 5,000 kilometers high, and a shuriken is about 3,000 kilometers tall. Compared with the ape clone that is 30 or 40 kilometers away, it is simply like a mountain crushing him. No one could believe that the messenger dared not move under such a collision. Hard-headed. Still confident? Several presidents from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce came to M holding his breath. Just when he thought it was about to get worse, the sword edge struck Jia Yan on the forehead, but it slid down along his hair. It was exactly the same as the fist and kick attack just now. The hair all over his body relieved him of endless power, as if it didn't bring any pressure to him. The guard leader was shocked this time, with an unacceptable expression on his face. The ministers below were all astonished, and only a few powerful men showed some thoughtful expressions. Stop it, Commander-in-Chief, there is a huge gap between you and the messenger. A minister who had reached the subdivision level spoke calmly, and then he jumped onto the ring. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3254. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Your Majesty the Messenger, I am also very interested in the moves you just made. Why don't you also teach me a few moves? The ape Jia Yan looked at him, nodded slightly and said, please. Sure enough, you are quick to talk. The minister showed great appreciation for Jia Yan, the envoy. No one can resist such a cheerful person. However, the identity and status of both parties made it impossible for them to immediately have contact with the ape clone as if they were friends. At least this fight needs to be fought first. Puff. The other party opened up his own false space. The illusionary space of the submaster level is completely different from the complete guru level space. The gap between the two sides is like heaven and earth, so the submaster level space is like a child's version of playing house. The scope does not seem to own the entire world, and the senses are not brought into the real world by the other party. In the false world, it seems that they have carved out a certain space in the original world. Some abilities are more similar to the illusion system of the Milky Way, but the principles of the two sides are completely different. This is my pen space. It contains all the mysteries of my official career for thousands of years. I would like to invite you, the envoy, to appreciate it. While the other party was speaking, a large amount of pen and ink appeared in the turmoil of the world. There were various criticisms, various evidence of the crimes of the prisoners, and various approval documents, as if he was an extremely upright official. Anyone who enters such a space will feel a huge sense of pressure, just like a citizen meeting an official. Even the strong men in the galaxy are no exception. After all, managers will have them in any world. As long as you have ever cared about bureaucracy, your power will be greatly weakened under the hint of this vision. But this is the way to deal with ordinary people. For a clone that is not a real person, Even if he inherits all the memories of the real person, those memories are like watching a movie, only more profound. On a certain level, he is not affected by it. The full impact of such memories. So he watched the flying pen and ink indifferently, completely unaffected. The writing is good. The ape clone said appreciatively. Sir Messenger, are you not affected at all? The official who proposed a long brush showed a little surprise. Why should it be affected? The other party fell silent immediately. People from the outside cannot easily understand the fighting situation between the two people in the hypocritical space. All they know is that it must be intense. This so-called Galactic Chamber of Commerce envoy is really not an easy person to deal with. Being able to become the envoy of that force, it is impossible for him to be mediocre, but if he fights with a subdivision master, who is obviously not a subdivision master, he is destined to fail. Well, the words have not yet finished. Everyone saw the official staggering back a few steps and spitting out a mouthful of blood. He was so defeated that he could no longer be defeated. This made everyone present feel like a bolt from the blue. Accepted. No. It's, Your Majesty, the messenger is very powerful. I didn't ask you anything. The bureaucrat seemed to be completely unable to accept his disastrous defeat. After saying this, he gave a sad smile and turned around and left the scene. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. Someone wanted to ask him something, but he couldn't even stop him. The bureaucrat who left the palace looked at the rolling palaces from a distance and laughed at himself for a long time. He pointed out my problems in cultivation, and even pointed out the flaws in my power. If I don't become a truly good official for decades, I'm afraid I won't be able to reach the level of a guru in my lifetime. What this person never expected was that his cultivation problems would be pointed out by an envoy from an outside force. There are so many masters in the dynasty, and they must have great vision and have discovered his problems, but no one is willing to point them out, because his Tao power lies in the way of being an official. If he corrects it, his strength will be greatly increased, and he is expected to enter the upper class in the future. However, for those experts, having one more competitor is not a good thing, and his main problem is to become a good official. In today's imperial officialdom, the prerequisite for becoming a good official is to offend almost all the bureaucrats in the world. Are you willing to cultivate masters who are on the opposite side of yourself and others? It was impossible, so it was only the turn of the messenger today to point it out after defeating him, and he suddenly realized it. After this, the dynasty will have a good and upright official. Thank you, Your Excellency, the envoy from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. He found that he still didn't know the real name of the galactic merchant envoy. When the officials of the dynasty asked, they just found an excuse to change the topic, so he could only call this person the envoy. The bureaucrats, remembering the favor, left the palace. In the future, whether he will change his past mistakes and become a clean stream in the officialdom of the imperial dynasty as he wishes, thereby guiding his Taoist power and artistic conception and becoming a guru-level master, depends on his actual actions next. Your Majesty, the envoy is truly worthy of being a man who bears heavy responsibilities, and his strength is astonishing. Jia Yan stepped down from the ring and found that when people in the dynasty looked at him, they no longer looked at him with a condescending feeling. Even a subdivision master was defeated, which shows the strength of the messenger in front of him. Even if he is not a master, he is destined to be a top subdivision master. With such a being, he would be a supreme master in the dynasty who could cover the sky with one hand. There would be no problem in being on the same level as them. Not to mention that the supporting force behind the envoy was the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, which sent 6 master-level beings to help the dynasty last time. The combat power it has since is unfathomable. Everyone became more polite. The deputy president's face turned blue and white. Just now, he thought that the envoy was destined to be defeated on the spot and bring shame to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. He even thought about how to remedy the situation, such as comforting the envoy's angry mood, and how to make the dynasty not underestimate the person who came from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, etc. Unexpectedly, without any preparation, this messenger actually defeated a subdivision master. You must know that this is a subdivision master, and in the vast country like the dynasty, he is definitely one of the rarest masters. Lord Messenger, in this way, the arrogance of the dynasty will definitely be restrained. Facing the branch president who was facing him, Jia Yan the ape nodded calmly, as if the mountain was about to collapse, but his expression remained unchanged. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. The sideshow is over and the meal has been eaten. Why don't we continue the agreement negotiations in the afternoon? Good. With Jia Yan showing his strength, officials throughout the dynasty were shocked. The master-level experts are confident that they can deal with this messenger, but can they really take action? It is not necessary for the dynasty to take action against an envoy. They are eager to join forces with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, which has considerable combat power. Fighting the envoy away is something that only a person with a headache can do. After all, if the subdivision level takes action, it can still be said to be a competition. If even a master level being at the national treasure level takes action, it is not a competition. Who has ever seen nuclear weapons used in ordinary wars? This clause doesn't have to be so harsh, right? No, this is one of the core terms of our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. After all, we are doing business. If you don't want us to enter the energy industry, how can you be sincere? Besides, it is the energy industry, but in the Neo dynasty, we can't let's hog all the energy. That's okay. The ministers made friendly deals and pulls with the ape clones one by one. The vast majority of provisions were adopted. At the same time, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce also accepted many dynasty requirements for the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce to send troops immediately. In some parts of it, the presidents of the major branches who were watching were all frightened. Unless Lord Jia Yan comes in person, no one would dare to have such great power to sign a treaty on the spot, right? Where does this messenger come from? Sweat broke out on their foreheads. Not that it was hot, but scared. They all saw that this messenger was really courageous. He dares to make any terms, and he dares to sign any terms. Many things are absolutely impossible to agree to unless the president comes in person. If such conditions are signed, how will President Jia Yan's envoy respond? How do the senior leaders of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce view the messenger? Do you think that this person has too much power and has gone too far in making his own decisions? They all looked strangely in their eyes. Decisions were made one by one, keeping a certain distance from the messenger. Otherwise, when the messengers are liquidated by their superiors, they will also suffer disaster. Sir Messenger, these guys seem to be a little wary of you. It doesn't matter, everyone has their own choices, but why are you standing by my side so wholeheartedly? Haha, the branch president, who was favored by Jia Yan the most, smiled bitterly. Now that I say that my relationship with you is not deep, is anyone willing to believe it? Even if some people believe it, if you lose power next, I will definitely be affected, so everything is unnecessary. I might as well stand by your side as always. You are a happy person, and it is worthy of my attention to you. Ape Jia Yan admired this man's smile very much. But he didn't say anything. After all, for him now, even if he managed to win over a master who was not at the domain lord level, there was nothing to be happy about. In the future, if this person knows his identity, the most important thing is to give him a little more status. He may be able to gain a loyal subordinate who reaches the domain lord level in the future. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. The discussions and quarrels between the two parties came to an abrupt end when it came to currency-assisted issuance. Both sides are at loggerheads over this. Although these officials in the dynasty were incompetent and extremely corrupt, they were by no means all fools. On the contrary, they were quite smart. Once something involves funds, there will definitely be something fishy. They don't know what the right to print currency is, nor what financial warfare is. But the dynasty has ruled and managed the economy of the entire Neo dynasty region for so many years. It's not like he doesn't have any ability and experience. At least when it comes to currency printing and issuance rights, they know that they cannot let the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce take away their rights easily. In the end, Jia Yan relented. He expressed his willingness to cooperate with the dynasty to build a money printing factory to replace the current currency system that is not suitable for the dynasty with the most advanced technology. Because the dynasty was huge, the monetary system was shaky. Some places had already implemented banknotes officially introduced by the dynasty, but some places were still in the barter stage, and more effective currency management tools were simply not available. Leave it to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. There are 10,000 ways to implement the monetary system throughout the dynasty. Of course, from now on, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce will also be allowed to lie on the money bag and suck blood. Everyone, happy to cooperate. Well, it's a pleasure to cooperate, Mr. Messenger. We have prepared the banquet. Why don't we move over and enjoy it for a while? Okay, then it's better to be respectful than obey. Socializing in diplomatic etiquette is still quite necessary. The ape Jia Yan followed the other party to the grand banquet prepared by the dynasty, and once again experienced the luxury and enjoyment of the other world. It must be said that Jia Yan was a little sighing. If this is not the intention, they might be corrupted by this group of dynasty officials and completely become one of them greedy for pleasure. The next day, under the grand farewell ceremony, the envoys from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce were sent outside the capital by a farewell procession. This ceremony was no worse than the one before. The overwhelming crowds of people were isolated on both sides of the distant road. Even the emperor personally escorted them to the city gate. Your Excellency, Ambassador, it is really a pleasure to meet you. However, I know that you have important things to do, so I will not force you to stay for a long time. I also ask you to reach the conclusion of this contract as soon as possible. Your Majesty. As long as the Chamber of Commerce is willing to comply with the terms of the contract, this administration will do its best to fulfill those terms. Then thank you very much, Your Majesty the Emperor. I will take my leave first. No, please be careful on the road. Amidst the Emperor's seemingly enthusiastic farewell words, Jia Yan led a group of branch presidents and slowly rose into the sky, then transformed into a straight line and disappeared over the imperial capital. By the way version. The officials suddenly became silent, and their expressions changed from enthusiastic to thoughtful. After all, not all of them have a favorable impression of Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, or in other words, is more or less disgusted with this business force that cannot be defeated in the middle of the dynasty. They wish they could digest the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce overnight so that they can get a piece of the pie. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. Unfortunately, they can't do this. Lord Messenger, why don't you go to the branch where we are stationed to rest for a day or two before leaving? No, I'm busy with business. I'm going back to arrange things. Of course, before I leave, I'll borrow your communication facilities and inform them of the terms and important events. Yes, let's lead the way. The president, who had become very close to Jia Yan inexplicably, deliberately left the other presidents aside and led Jia Yan towards the branch of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce in the satellite city where he was located. The other presidents seemed to have not seen this at all, watching with their eyes, nose, and heart.